Chapter 1822. You should save her first. Soon, the second Mayfair gave a useful suggestion to Boss Luo, who was making a difficult decision. Therefore, Boss Luo directly rescued the first Mayfair. Then, he knocked the second Mayfair with his big, holy sword and released the second Mayfair. The second Mayfair's injury had been transferred because of Aldic's heart. However, the first Mayfair's injury was still there, and the bleeding did not stop. The recovery potion dropped could not affect chessboard creatures, so Dr. Gores felt that it was time for her to show her skills. "I'll do it!" Dr. Gores rushed out. But in an instant, the second Mayfair directly grabbed his neck and threw him out. Although she was the vice-captain, she was easily defeated by Malik. However, Malik's strength was not weak. Dr. Gores directly hit the wall and saw stars. The second Mayfair pressed her hands on the first Mayfair's chest, and her hands were slowly releasing a soft green light. The wound was also healing little by little. Although the wound began to heal, the first Mayfair's wound was real, so she still looked quite weak. But at least, she was temporarily out of danger. "Don't you plan to kill her now?" Luochio was beside the second Mayfair at this time, and he asked calmly, "Anyway, it's not the first time. Why do you want to save her this time?" The first Mayfair heard this, and her pale face could not help but turn pale, and her body suddenly trembled. She could not help but look at the Vice-Captain Mayfair, her other self, in panic. The second Mayfair said calmly, "I can't let her die this time." Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "Because of Captain Malik?" The second Mayfair nodded. "I never thought that other than me and her, there would be someone who could wake up from the time reversal. I always ignored Malik, and I never thought that he also had the power of the goddess." Boss Luo said, "You can also wait for the new today to come, then you can attack Captain Malik. He has already said that he can't wake up every today, so there is no need to choose this today. After all, your current condition is obviously not good. Malik's current condition is worse than mine." The second Mayfair shook her head and said, "He should have used more power to preside over Gloria's rebirth ritual. Otherwise, he would not have escaped in such a hurry. Instead, he stayed here. You can't deal with him. If Malik is in a good state, he is indeed very powerful." Dr. Gores said with deep understanding, "This guy resisted Cade's ultimate skill, and nothing happened. He can even transform for the second time." Of course, this was not because Dr. Gores had any prejudice against Boss Luo, who had two professions, but Boss Luo did not really attack Cade not long ago. Cade retreated because of Dr. Gores' sudden backstab. Moreover, this was related to the power of the gods in the world of chessboard, after all. Such a high-end battle, they had never encountered it before. In this regard, Boss Luo did not comment. He just thought for a while and said, "In this case, what is Miss Mayfair going to do?" "I don't know." Chase Malik. Who would have thought that the two Mayfairs would reply at the same time? After replying, they both looked at each other in unison, and soon after, they fell silent. "You are the one I met on the first day." Boss Luo looked at the first Mayfair and smiled slightly. "Why don't I call you Miss Mayfair of the first day? Then, the other one is Miss Mayfair of the second day. Is that okay?" "Up to you." The second day Mayfair said indifferently, "But I want to remind you that if you waste time on me, Malik may escape. Today there is not much time left." On the first day, Mayfair nodded gently and did not say anything. Boss Luo looked at Miss Mayfair of the first day at this time and said, "We came here this time to solve the mystery of time backtracking on you. Now, it seems that the answer is already known. So, we now have a new mission." There was indeed a new mission instruction. When the ritual in the stone room was in progress and Boss Luo and Gores were listening outside, the new instruction from chessboard appeared. "This is indeed a nightmare. There is a beginning but no end. O great adventurer, please end this nightmare with your traitorous companions. Remember, when it is destroyed, it is also the time to restart. Go. Obviously, the mission had to be completed. If one played the game without completing the mission, what was the difference between him and a salted fish? Therefore, Dr. Gores, who fell and saw stars, quickly ran back. Time backtracking, it was you two who created it. Logically speaking, you should know how to end it. I'm sorry, Miss Mayfair of the second day stood up, I won't let it disappear. What's wrong with you? Dr. Girth frowned. But at this time, many green vines suddenly grew out of the pool and instantly entangled Dr. Gores. They even covered half of his face, and he couldn't struggle. Miss Mayfair of the second day looked at Boss Luo and moved her lip. After a moment of silence, she said, "Why did the item you swapped still appear in the box in today?" Boss Luo smiled and said, "Probably because Aldic's heart has a trace of divine power. It seems to belong to the god of war in this world. It originally belonged to the gods. Perhaps because of this, it could be preserved in Gloria's divine power backtracking." I see. Miss Mayfair of the second day nodded as if she accepted this explanation. She took a deep breath. "Why did you put Aldic's heart in the box?" Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "At first, I didn't think too much about it. It was just a way to delay the setting that if Miss Mayfair died, time would rewind. Now it seems quite useful." Miss Mayfair of the second day looked at Boss Luo deeply. "No matter what, you did save me. I won't forget. But I said that I won't let the backtracking disappear. If I die, time will still return to a today's beginning. You can stop me from dying once, but you can't stop me from dying a second time, a third time, or even more." "So," Miss Mayfair of the second day said in a low voice, "I've told you how to leave this time predicament. You swapped the thing in the box last time, but that thing should have disappeared in the backtracking, right?" "Indeed." Boss Luo nodded. Miss Mayfair of the second day said, "If that's the case, you can go to my room to take it. There's a lot under the bed. After you take it, don't come back here. Goodbye." As she said that, a large number of trees grew out of the pool in an instant. They formed a dense wall of trees in front of Miss Mayfair of the second day. Dr. Gores used his tongue to pry open some of the vines and said anxiously, "Captain, you're letting her escape just like that?" "Yes, what else can I do?" Boss Luo looked at Miss Mayfair of the first day. "Have you decided, Miss Mayfair of the first day?" I don't know." She looked at him blankly. "Then wait a little longer." Boss Luo smiled and slashed the wall of trees in front of him with his sword, creating a path. "But before you make a decision, you can follow us." Hearing his soft words, Miss Mayfair of the first day muttered to herself, "Just now, when I was about to die, I felt like I've seen you somewhere before." "Think about it slowly." Boss Luo nodded and saved Dr. Gores with a backhand slash. Then, he walked toward the path created by the slash. He didn't know whether Boss Luo wanted Miss Mayfair of the first day to think about what to do or what to do next. "Do you want me to carry you?" Dr. Gores came to Miss Mayfair of the first day and squatted down beside her. "I'm sorry, although you look like a good person." Miss Mayfair of the first day shook her head and said, "But I'll do it myself. I can do it." "Ha, elven woman." In the dim passage of the temple, a figure was touching the wall and stumbling forward. Soon, a group of patrolling temple guards arrived, and when they noticed this strange figure, they hurriedly approached him. "Who's here?" "Captain." After the change in tone, they straightened their bodies and saluted. A group of 6 guards raised their heads and puffed out their chests respectfully, because the person who appeared here was the captain of the temple guards. "Captain, what happened? Why does he look like he's injured? Is there an enemy?" The team members soon found this brave captain's condition. His face was slightly pale, and there were bloodstains at the corners of his mouth, and his clothes were wet. This caused Captain Malik to cut an extremely sorry figure. "You guys, come closer." Captain Malik, who was leaning against the wall, said slowly, "I have something to say." The 6 guards didn't suspect anything and directly walked forward. But at this moment they all felt that their legs seemed to be entangled by something. The members of the guards looked down and saw that their legs had been entangled by some thin plant roots at some point in time. These roots even grew all the way up along their legs. "What's this?" A blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out in this dim passageway, and then it quickly subsided. Captain Malik slowly sighed, and his pale face already had a bit of color. However, there were 6 withered corpses of the elven guards on the ground. Captain Malik didn't look at them and walked directly into the depths of the passage. He was about to reach the inner hall of the temple. "I didn't expect that I would fail at the last moment. Today is going to end soon. Before that, what I need to do is to make sure that I can remember everything as soon as possible in the next today." Soon, Captain Malik came to the door of the inner hall of the temple with a certain purpose, but at this moment, Captain Malik found many elven guards' corpses on the ground. The door of the inner hall wasn't completely closed. Captain Malik couldn't help but frown. He felt that someone had come here before him. Moreover, that person should have just entered. "Who is it?" With doubts, Captain Malik approached quietly. A black wind instantly blew open the door of the inner hall of the temple. The black wind that blew into the inner hall quickly stopped, and then turned into a figure. At this moment, Cardil took a few slow steps in the weird inner hall of the shrine. Due to his heavy injuries, he directly fell to the ground. His injuries were indeed quite serious. If he knew this, he wouldn't have given the strange dagger to Gors temporarily. The continuous damage caused by the dagger could only wait until it ended. Before that, Cardil had no other choice but to rely on recovery potions to constantly replenish his health points. Fortunately, this time he got some of Mr. Varley's collection in the chessboard world before he came back, and he had a lot of recovery items with him. However, the wound on his chest couldn't be healed and blood dripped down. The dripping blood seemed to have stimulated the dense roots in the inner hall. Looking at these roots crawling over like a group of snakes in a snake's nest, Cardil couldn't help but feel numb. Cardil hurriedly shouted at this moment, "Isn't today a perfect day?" The roots on the ground were still surging over, and it didn't seem like they were going to stop. Cardil couldn't help but shout the same words again. This time, the roots on the ground finally stopped and slowly retreated. At the same time, above the divine throne where the blindfolded woman was sitting, the dense wall of roots slowly opened, and a figure slowly descended under the support of the roots. "What Gors said is true," Cardil muttered at this time. He looked at Mr. Varley, who appeared in front of him. Today is naturally a perfect day. When Mr. Varley completely landed, he looked straight into Cardil's eyes and immediately nodded. The code confirmed. "It's the right servant." Cardil was silent for a moment and then slowly said, "My master is Mr. Varley. He told me that I will get help here." "Of course." Mr. Varley smiled slightly and said, "But before that you have to tell me, why are you so miserable?" Cardil opened his mouth. He also wanted to know, but the opponent's cheat was stronger than the one given by Mr. Wally. What could he do? Hashtag 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 PS 8184. Chapter 1823. Dual profession, and both of them are Holy Light series. He can restrain you in all aspects? Are you telling the truth? Mr. Wally began to frown. He was an anxious person, and his anxiety was very strong. "I don't think I need to lie in front of you," Cardil said in a deep voice. Mr. Wally was silent, but he looked at Cardil with a strange gaze. "Are you really my servant? What do you mean?" Cardil couldn't help but frown. "It's you, it's the one outside who asked me to come to the temple to find you, and there's a secret signal. Is it fake? Do you know how many function cards there are in the function card set?" Mr. Wally said coldly. "How would I know?" This is your chessboard and the card set box. Countless. Mr. Wally said indifferently, the function cards in the function cards set box will always be generated, but the number of special function cards is fixed. As you said, your opponent's configuration, even I may not be able to do it once in hundreds of games. What do you want to say? Cardil frowned again. He felt some kind of distrust from Mr. Wally's words. I don't want to say anything. Mr. Wally shook his head and said, I'm just curious. How did a master who participated in the chessboard game for the first time get such a combination of cards that the success rate is infinitely close to zero? It's not that simple. Cardil said indifferently, you give me more inheritance and let me defeat them. You can ask them again, right? Chessboard is yours. No matter how powerful the opponent is, don't you have a way to deal with it? Let me kill myself and retrain, or change my class again, or give me special items that I will win. Why do you care so much? Mr. Wally also felt that Cade's words were very reasonable. But the problem was that a dual-class holy light servant with a holy set didn't have any weakness, okay? Don't you have it? As if he saw through Mr. Wally's silence, Cadell seemed to have thought of something. Why you can't help me defeat him? It's not that there's no way. Mr. Wally shook his head and thought, the key is whether it is worth it to use it here or not. Make it clear, Cardil said seriously. Now, if I lose, it won't do you any good either. The servant and the master were closely connected. Although I don't know what kind of relationship you have with my master outside, one thing is for sure. If I lose, it won't be a good thing for you. Prama's divine descent. Mr. Wally heaved a sigh of relief and said, a chance to summon the clone of goddess Prama to battle, an item that can only be used once in every game of chessboard. In front of the divine power of the goddess, no servant with class ability can resist. This is good stuff. Cadillac nodded. He felt like having such an item would fit Wally's identity as the owner of chessboard. Then what are we waiting for? Once it's used. Mr. Wally said indifferently, then challenging the final guardian might not be able to pass the game smoothly. Such a consequence is not very good. What is the consequence? Cardil frowned. Although this chessboard game was based on the layout of the game of Bravehearts that was popular in the Inhuman domain, there were too many strange places. Although the final guardian of the game of Bravehearts was powerful, it wasn't an existence that couldn't be defeated. If there is no way to defeat the guardian of this game, then this game will never stop. Mr. Wally said slowly, it means that a new game will never start. You will be trapped here until you find a way to defeat the guardian. What if I can't find it? Cardil's face changed slightly. Then you can only die here. Mr. Wally whispered, and because this game has not been completed, chessboard will not be opened again. Cardil was shocked and immediately frowned. There is no other way. Now there are only 3 choices. First, you give me the item to summon the goddess, and then try your luck to see if I can find another way to defeat the guardian. But this option is obviously very risky. Otherwise, you wouldn't hesitate. Second, make peace. Forget the previous unhappiness, ally with your opponent, and challenge the guardian together. The last one. Mr. Wally looked at Cardil and said indifferently, I will give you the item now, and then you will challenge the guardian directly, right? This is obviously the wisest choice. Cardil shrugged. But I have to tell you. Mr. Wally shook his head and said, the guardian will only appear when there is a challenger on one side. Although it is not necessarily a situation where only one side is left, the premise is that there must be only one side left. I can only choose to ally? Cardil was stunned and then sighed. This is nothing. Although I was killed once, I didn't really die. In front of greater interests, I can choose to temporarily put this down. As long as I can leave and return to the outside world, there will be many opportunities to settle accounts in the future. What are you hesitating for? Give me the item. Mr. Wally shook his head and said, You haven't completed the prerequisite to defeat the Oracle. I can't give you that item now. Just this? Cardil opened his mouth and then sighed in relief. I thought it was something else. There will be opportunities. Anyway, I can do it again. If I can't kill him the first time, I can repeat it a few more times. I can always find a way to kill the Oracle. A few more times? Unexpectedly, Mr. Wally said in surprise, Why do you have to do it a few more times? Do you think it is easy to prepare for a grand ceremony? It takes at least 10 years to prepare for a grand ceremony in the home of elves. Prema only comes once every 10 years. Today is going to be over soon, and it is too late. If you miss this time, you can only wait for another 10 years, okay? 10 years. Cardil said in surprise, What 10 years? After today's failure, didn't it reset to the beginning of today immediately? I have experienced it twice. This is the second today, okay? Yesterday today last time, I almost defeated the Oracle. If it wasn't for the time suddenly rewinding, how could there be so much trouble? Now that I think about it, Gores must have done something in the today last time to reset the time. Reset backtrack? Mr. Wally suddenly looked at Cardil. He reached out his hand. The blindfolded woman on the throne also raised her hand abruptly. The thick and long roots reached out crazily and directly grabbed Cartier. Then, she took him back and sent him to Mr. Varley. What did you say, reset backtrack? Can you say it again? Reset backtrack. Cardil showed a trace of panic. He felt that this, Mr. Wally, was not normal at this time, so he had to say in a panic, time should be rewinding indefinitely. As long as something goes wrong, it will immediately return to the beginning of today. Really, this is the second time I have experienced today. Gores and the others must have experienced it more than once. Otherwise, I would have waited for you in the forest. The female elf you mentioned outside, I went to the treehouse, but I didn't see her. That's why I directly joined the grand ceremony. But this time, I don't know why the Oracle changed to Gores. Let go of me. Reset, reset, reset? Mr. Varley lowered his head and murmured to himself. Suddenly, he raised his head, and the roots that grabbed Cardil tightened. His voice seemed to be squeezed out from his throat. Tell me, how much time has passed outside? What? How much time has passed? How long has it been since I left the family? Cardil could only say with difficulty, You. Wally Tsimish was expelled from the Tsimish family's territory because the Grand Duke didn't like you. It was more than 100 years ago. Are you serious? You didn't lie to me? In this situation, How can I lie to you? Cardil breathed painfully. Wait, you. Don't you know? Mr. Wally suddenly became indifferent. He put Cardil down and said calmly, I suddenly remembered that there is a way to defeat your opponent without using the goddess summoning item. Cardil breathed heavily for a while and said in shock, What did you say? Why didn't you say it just now? Mr. Wally said calmly, There are thousands of items in the chessboard game and the combinations are endless. I didn't think of any problem at the moment. Go lure your opponent here. I will have a way to deal with them. But remember, you must do it before today ends. What if I fail today and backtrack? Cardil frowned. Then you can tell me again tomorrow. Mr. Wally said calmly, But you have to come earlier so that I don't have to waste time thinking. Cardil looked at Mr. Wally suspiciously, but he still agreed for the time being. However, he couldn't contact Mr. Wally, who was the master outside, so he could only act according to the situation. Then I will go and see if I can lure them here. Cardil thought for a while and said, They shouldn't have left the godly palace yet. After saying that, Cardil quickly turned around and left. However, when he opened the gate of the inner palace of the godly palace, a figure was already standing outside. You are. Cardil was stunned, and then he frowned, It's you, God's messenger. Malik? At this moment, the person who appeared in front of the gate was Captain Malik. Seeing Captain Malik standing outside the gate, Mr. Wally was obviously stunned. Then he frowned and waved his hand. Malik? I'm not hungry now. You can go. If I need you, I will call you again. However, Captain Malik didn't seem to hear him at this time. He even suddenly attacked Cardil, who couldn't react in time, and directly sent him into the inner palace. Then he walked straight into the inner palace of the godly palace. Malik, what are you doing? Mr. Wally couldn't help but frown. Can't you hear my command? I want to know what the item that you said can summon the avatar of Goddess, Prama is. Captain Malik said expressionlessly, It seems that after so many backtracks, I still don't remember this item. At the same time, Cardil, who was sneakily attacked, directly crushed a recovery potion and stood up again. He held the long staff in his hand and snorted coldly, Today isn't over yet, right? Since I have to defeat this god's messenger to get the item to summon the goddess, then I might as well get it today. Mr. Wally? Mr. Wally narrowed his eyes at this time. Facing Cardil's suggestion, he replied, Then do it. If you can defeat Malik here, it will save you a lot of trouble. Then I won't be polite. Cardil's face turned cold and he immediately sneered. Although the operation to deal with the captain of Gore's medical team, Boss Luo, failed this time, Cardil wasn't too discouraged. Although he didn't really fight with Boss Luo, and he was very afraid of the opponent's dual profession ability, this failure was more because of Gore's sudden rebellion, which caused him to almost die. Otherwise, Cardil felt that if it was a head-on confrontation, even if he couldn't defeat Boss Luo's dual profession ability, he wouldn't be bullied in all aspects, right? As for Malik, he had also fought with him. Last time, today, he had at least beaten Malik to the verge of going berserk. Besides, this was Mr. Wally's territory. At the very least, Mr. Wally wouldn't watch him be defeated and even had a strong helper. Under such an advantageous situation, Cardil couldn't think of any reason not to take action. With this thought, Cardil began to activate the long staff. One by one, grayish-black bubbles began to spit out quickly. However, when Captain Malik looked at Cardil at this time, he chuckled mockingly and said, You're really stupid. Can't you see that he actually wants you to die in my hands? Don't you think it's too? Cardil sneered, but before he finished his words, he suddenly felt a terrifying stabbing pain spreading all over his body. He lowered his head and looked. His chest had already been pierced by a sharp root from his back. Cade's pupils suddenly dilated. However, at this moment, another sharp root was approaching and piercing his body once again. Then there was another one, and then another. Chi. In just an instant, Cardil's body had been pierced more than 10 times. He even felt that his HP value had directly decreased, and he couldn't recover it even if he recovered. It was the borderline of death. Why? You? Cardil looked at Mr. Wally in disbelief. Only, Mr. Wally, you could drive the blindfolded woman on the divine throne. However, Cardil didn't get an answer because at this time, another sharp root pierced his head directly. Then, there was no more breath. Looking at the completely dead Cardil, Mr. Wally said expressionlessly, Malik, from what you said just now, you seem to know that you have been in the reincarnation of time. So, this guy, not long after, will still appear in front of me alive, right? Captain Malik smiled at this time and said, You foreign invaders really know how to play. It seems that not only do you treat our world as a toy, but you are also constantly playing with each other. You know? Mr. Wally couldn't help but frown. Captain Malik said calmly, Many years ago, to be precise, many present days reincarnations ago, there was a fellow named Gerald. He's the same as this guy on the ground, he's also an invader. I met him in the trial road. He told me about this matter. At first, I thought that he was just spouting nonsense. However, after I successfully woke up many times, I realized that what this person called Geralt said was probably true. Our world has always been treated as a living thing, and it has always been manipulated by you people. Geralt? Mr. Wally frowned. It seems that you don't know. Malik smiled and said, Don't you know? Even I can't count clearly in today. Many guys like Geralt have come. I remember, it seems that every time I met this guy, I would always be killed. It's really some unpleasant memories. Why do you? Mr. Wally thought for a while and said, Can you remember these things clearly? Why? Malik said indifferently, Isn't it simple? Because I'm really the oracle of Prama. Black patterns blossomed on Captain Malik's body. Gradually, a taller, hollowed-out humanoid figure appeared behind him. At this time, as if feeling the terrifying power from Malik, Mr. Wally was very anxious. He subconsciously waved his hand to activate the blindfolded woman on the throne. The roots of the entire inner hall also surged wildly in an instant, stabbing directly at Malik. This hypocritical thing. Malik snorted coldly at this time. You actually made me worship in countless today. Is the throne a place where an ugly thing like you should stay? Incinerate. All the roots were directly burned to ashes at this moment. The flame not only burned the attacking roots, but also burned all the way to the blindfolded woman on the throne. When the flame began to burn on the blindfolded woman's body, the blindfolded woman actually howled in pain. In just an instant, the beautiful woman's body was burned away, and what was exposed was the ugly appearance of a tree monster. It quickly turned into charcoal and then shattered. At this moment, only ashes could be seen everywhere in the main hall. Mr. Wally's face changed in shock. He stepped back a few steps without saying a word. At the same time, he raised his palm. A bracelet on his wrist released light, and a barrier appeared in front of him. Only after killing me can you get the item to summon Prama's avatar? Captain Malik's eyes suddenly showed golden light. He directly broke the barrier in front of Mr. Wally, with a stretch of his hand and sucked him in out of thin air, grabbing his throat. Why? You want to kill me? Although Mr. Wally panicked, he didn't panic. Even if you kill me here, is it useful? According to what you said, after today, another day will come again. I will still appear here and order you around at will. Even if you can vent your anger by killing me this time, it still can't change the fact that I can order you around and scold you every time. Don't worry, Malik said calmly. The reason I invaded the inner palace this time was so that I could be the first to wake up and also to kill you at the first opportunity. Mr. Wally said quickly, How about we cooperate to change the current nightmarish reincarnation? I think you don't want to be trapped in this nightmare all the time? Malik didn't move at all. Mr. Wally said again, I tell you, I'm also a person who was abandoned here. Until today, until this guy named Cade Lai came, I discovered this truth. Not necessarily, maybe I thought about it before, but the reincarnation of time made me forget it. Just like that, I lived the same day for more than 100 years in the outside world, without knowing it. You can understand the anger in my heart at this time, right? Malik loosened his grip on Mr. Wally at this time. I want revenge. Mr. Wally gritted his teeth and said with hatred, I won't let the guy who tricked me here and left me here have an easy time. I won't let him win. I want him to lose completely and let him fall into a more angry hatred than me. What can you do? Malik said calmly. From the looks of it, you are like a toy locked up in a cage. How can you take revenge on your enemies outside the cage? I can. Mr. Wally said angrily. I can close this chessboard forever. Let him have the chessboard, but he can't open it again. Let him see the countless wealth here, but he can't get it. Let him be anxious every day and can't get away. Torture. This is the biggest torture. Maybe I can even initiate the chessboard's punishment on him. He will be afraid, an unprecedented fear. Close the chessboard? Malik frowned. Do you really have a way to close this so-called chessboard, and then from today onwards the foreign invaders can't come to our world again? Yes. Mr. Wally nodded. As long as I use the item to summon the goddess here, the challenger can't fight against the final guardian. In this way, this game will always be in progress. What should I do? Malik completely let go of Mr. Wally this time. Mr. Wally thought for a while, then walked to the throne. He smashed the throne with force. In the pedestal of the throne, there was a short sword with the same black pattern as Malik's body. Mr. Wally pulled out the short sword, came to Malik again, and said in a deep voice, "Killing you is to get an item called the Goddess Crystal from you. It can be embedded in this Brahma's blade, so it can release the power of the goddess Brahma's blade once." You want to kill me? Malik couldn't help sneering, and his eyes were full of killing intent again. Mr. Wally shook his head and said, "No. I'm just saying that since killing you can get the goddess crystal, maybe when you hold this Brahma's blade, you can already use the divine power of Brahma's blade. Maybe you can break this reincarnation nightmare." "You're just speculating," Malik said indifferently. "It's better than doing nothing." Mr. Varley gritted his teeth and said, "Even if this is the only time I know the truth, I won't just sit there and wait for my death. Besides, I have already told you this secret. Even if you fail this time, if you can wake up in the future, you can come and take away Brahma's blade, or avoid being killed by other servants. No matter what, my other self will face the situation of chessboard, being closed or being punished by chessboard." Mr. Wally handed over a Brahma's blade, at this time with an honest look. Malik glanced at him and stretched out his hand. However, at this time, in the ashes, a root suddenly regenerated and shot out like lightning. It directly took away Brahma's blade in Mr. Wally's hand. Malik turned around. Brahma's blade had fallen into a white hand. The next day, Miss Mayfair. Mayfair? The sacrifice that should be sent to the mountain? Mr. Wally couldn't help but frown and looked at Malik. Why is she here? Malik just waved his hand, and an invisible force directly swept Mr. Wally away. He looked at, the next day, Mayfair, and said indifferently, "It doesn't matter if you take it away this time. Anyway, I already know its existence. Tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, I will naturally come to get it. I will get it eventually." The next day, Mayfair thought for a while and said, "I think maybe I should erase you from today. Are you sure?" Malik walked step by step. "If you want to erase me from today, you have to let all this illusion return to reality. Aren't you afraid that it will erode the hometown of the elf? It's better than facing your ambition to take away Gloria's power every time." The next day, Mayfair took a deep breath and said, "Even if I'm the only one left, it's fine." With that, the pattern on the next day, Mayfair's forehead began to bloom crazily. The power instantly flowed into Brahma in her hand. Malik's face changed dramatically, and the hollow figure behind him instantly exploded, shouting angrily, "You can't do this!" However, an intense wave of light burst out from the second day's Mayfair's body. It spread out rapidly, crazily spreading out, While running, the first day, Mayfair suddenly screamed in horror and then fell to the ground. At this time, she hugged her head with both hands, and her eyes became empty. At the same time, a light wave spread out. It passed by instantly and then rushed to the distance. After the light wave passed by, more than half of the passage of the godly palace had disappeared. Dr. Gores looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. It was a broken wall. "This is..." Dr. Gores couldn't help but mutter to himself. Boss Luo said softly, "It seems that this is the real hometown of the elf. A hometown of the elf that has already perished." Looking into the distance, the godly palace no longer existed. What existed was only a ruin. At the foot of the mountain, the elf's hometown no longer had bright lights. The entire hometown of the elf had become extremely desolate at this time. ######PS. As usual. Chapter 1824. I can't see the starry sky here. Nan Shaunan stared at the dark night in a daze. She was still on the rooftop of an elf's house, waiting for Mr. Luo, who was supposed to come. She felt sleepy while waiting, so she decided to lie down for a while. Suddenly, a light wave swept over. Nan Shaunan shuddered from head to toe. Then, her body started to fall. Her buttocks landed on the ground. Perhaps it was because this part of her body was heavier. Obviously, it was very painful. But compared to this part of the pain, what she saw in front of her shocked her even more. She raised her head like a caterpillar and looked up. What she saw was a long and dilapidated street. There was no one around, and there were only ruins around. Even the house she was in seemed to have collapsed long ago. Moreover, it was a long time ago. She lowered her head to look. What her body was pressing down on was shockingly a worn-out wooden puppet. The puppet's face had long been eroded by the passage of time, and had become blurred. A light beam was released from the top of the holy mountain in the distance. The real elven hometown? Dr. Gores was startled at first, then he frowned and said, "Why do you say that? Is the elven hometown that we have been living in fake?" "It can't be considered fake," Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "It can only be said that it is the elven hometown that once existed." Once existed? Once existed? Garth lowered his head and muttered to himself. Then, he looked at the motionless, the first day of Mayfair. He seemed to have thought of something and subconsciously said, "Time? Today's time has passed. Now it's tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's not tomorrow." At this moment, the first day Mayfair suddenly raised her head. Her eyes were still empty as she muttered, "It's yesterday, a long, long time ago yesterday. It's me. I caused yesterday." Gores was about to ask. A large number of black patterns suddenly appeared on the first day Mayfair's body. The patterns even grew all the way from her body to the broken long corridor of the temple. It continued to spread. In an instant it grew to a distance of about 50 or 60 meters. After that, black plant roots appeared on the ground and wrapped around the first day Mayfair's legs. They continued to grow until the first day Mayfair was sent to the sky. The gigantic purplish-black leaf finally wrapped the first day of Mayfair inside. Before they could be shocked, a figure was falling from above and smashing into the ground, right in front of Boss Luo and Dr. Gores, raising a large amount of dust. At this moment, Dr. Girth gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He rushed forward and stopped in front of Boss Luo, shouting, "Be careful! It's dangerous!" He acted as if he was just trying to protect her. "Thank you, Mr. Gores," Boss Luo said casually. "You're welcome." Dr. Gores turned back and said seriously, "Thanks for taking care of me all this time. I should do something for you." "But I think there's no danger for now," Boss Luo said with a smile. When the figure fell, Boss Luo could clearly see that it was Malik. If he could see it clearly, Dr. Gores could also see it clearly. Then, the reason why Captain Malik fell so pathetically was, Boss Luo and Gores looked up at the same time. They saw a beautiful figure slowly descending from the sky. The second day Mayfair. The second day Mayfair was holding a short sword in her hand. Black patterns bloomed on her body, her long hair spread out slightly, and her whole body was filled with a strange green light. In the dust, Malik grabbed his left arm and walked out in a slightly pathetically. There was a bright blood stain on the corner of his mouth. This was completely the scene of the Mephistopheles of the second day, easily beating up Malik. At this moment, Dr. Girls could not help but slightly change his expression. At this moment, the Mayfair of the second day seemed to be a little different. He actually did not dare to look at the other party directly, and a sense of awe appeared out of nowhere. But at this moment, a clear message appeared in his consciousness. It came from a chessboard. The source of nightmares appeared. Brave people, rescue the oracle and end the source of nightmares, Mayfair. When it's time to make a move, do you want to wait until it's cold? This message came very suddenly and seemed to have a trace of urgency. Dr. Gorse's expression changed several times, and he subconsciously looked at Boss Luo. You heard it too, Mission? Boss Luo nodded, as if he was thinking about something. However, the second day Mayfair didn't waste any time. When she saw Malik walk out of the dust, she had already made her move. Malik faced the second day Mayfair's attack, and his expression became extremely solemn. He took a deep breath and swung his sword with one hand to meet the attack. However, he was only able to block the attack before his body was sent flying backward. After crashing through several walls in succession, he finally came to a stop. When Malik stood up again, the second day Mayfair had already appeared in front of him. She raised her hand, and the green light instantly formed a huge energy claw outside her palm, tearing it fiercely. At that moment, Malik was unable to raise his sword in time. Just as he was about to lose his life to the gigantic energy claw, a shield of light suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time that the shield of light blocked the gigantic energy claw, it also shattered. The second day Mayfair's eyes focused, and at this moment, an arc of sword light slashed toward her. She gritted her teeth and reached out to block it. A loud sound. At this moment, Malik was gone. At this moment, a figure directly helped Malik away. It was Dr. Gorse. The second day Mayfair didn't chase after him. Instead, her face darkened, and she stared blankly in front of her. "Why did you stop me?" In front of her, Boss Luo, who was holding a big sword but didn't look like a swordsman, slowly said, "What we need to do now is to save Mr. Malik, and then, it seems like we need to defeat you." The second day Mayfair's expression changed slightly, and the green light on her body suddenly surged, as if she was angry. "To think that It seems that all of you invaders are the same, a group of people who are selfish." Then, the second day Mayfair directly rushed forward, and instantly raised her energy claw, but a light shield appeared in front of Boss Luo, and once again blocked the energy claw. It was a stalemate. "It seems that compared to Mr. Malik, you seem to know about the things outside the chessboard earlier." Boss Luo saw that the light shield was able to slightly block the attack, and he was relieved and started to speak. "Why are you still talking about this now?" The second day Mayfair continued to increase her strength. Seeing that the light shield was starting to shatter bit by bit, the increase in strength unknowingly increased by a lot. Finally, the light shield instantly shattered, and the energy claw was about to land. The second day Mayfair's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance, but she gritted her teeth and didn't stop. However, at this moment, just as the light shield was about to shatter, the energy claw was blocked once again. There was actually another light shield. This ring can release 3 protective shields. Boss Luo opened his palm at this moment. "I have a few more." "Are you a turtle with a shell?" The second day Mayfair couldn't help but be furious, and as if she was about to explode, both of her hands formed energy claws, and she attacked crazily. At the same time, the rings on Boss Luo's hand also started to shatter one by one. Knowing that all the rings on his hand had completely shattered, the second day Mayfair was already slightly panting. But seeing that the rings had disappeared, the second day Mayfair instantly gathered her strength, and the energy claw crazily clawed down. Die! Bang dash! It was blocked. Seeing that the light shield that appeared in front of her instead of a light shield, or the second day Mayfair stared at Luochio as if she couldn't wait to swallow him up, and she said angrily, There are more. You lied to me. The rings are gone, and I didn't mean to lie to you." Boss Luo shook his head. "But there are still 2 bracelets and a few pairs of earrings. Because I don't have the habit of wearing earrings, I didn't wear them, but the effect is actually the same when you wear them. Don't you think that's infuriating?" Anyway, Dr. Gores, who was watching from a distance, felt that if it were him, he would have vomited blood. This captain was so evil. Why did you save me? But at this moment Malik frowned and asked. Facing Malik's question, Dr. Gores said without thinking, I like your face, is this reason enough? Malik was silent, and then he sighed. I didn't expect that I would be saved by you invaders, but I won't be grateful to you. For such a long time, I have been killed by you invaders countless times. It's useless to say this, Dr. Gores said indifferently. Our mission now is to save you and then end Mayfair. Aren't you the Oracle of Prama? Do you know any way to deal with her? The power of Gloria can't be used for too long. Malik thought for a while and said, The elven homeland is isolated from the outside world. The purpose is to resist a force that erodes this world. The elven homeland is the last place left in this world. The power of isolation comes from the power of Gloria and Prama. Once she uses too much power, it will affect the internal balance of the power of isolation, which is something she doesn't want to see. Sure enough, as if to verify Malik's words, the attack of the next day's Mayfair did indeed slow down, and the power displayed even decreased. The power that erodes this world? Dr. Gores was startled. What power that erodes this world? The world inside chessboard. Was it not generated by chessboard? Malik said coldly at this time, You invaded our world. Don't you know? I know, I need a dumbfounded face. My face is used to seduce little girls. Forget it, it's useless to say this now. Malik immediately shook his head. She may be able to control it, but the other one may not. With that, Malik raised his head and looked at the top of the huge purple-black plant. Here, the first day's Mayfair was covered by leaves. The other one. Dr. Gores's expression froze. This is the first days. She will lose control? She has already lost control once, Malik said indifferently. At that time, it was because Mayfair's power went out of control that led to the destruction of the elven homeland. I still don't understand. Gores couldn't help but frown. Since you said that the current elven homeland is the real elven homeland, then what is the elven homeland we have been experiencing all this time? The most important thing is, why are there two Mayfair? Malik looked at Gores coldly. All of this is because of you invaders. It's all caused by you. At that time, there was no real goddess in the temple. In order to resist the invading power, Gloria sacrificed herself, and Prama exhausted her divine power and fell into a deep sleep. The temple has been worshipping for so many years, but it's just symbolic. As for offering sacrifices, it's actually a way to replenish Prama's divine power. It's a last resort. But I don't know when it started, but a goddess actually appeared in the temple, but this goddess was fake. It's Wally, Gores said subconsciously. Malik nodded. That guy cultivated an evil monster in the inner hall of the temple. He has been using the name of the goddess to constantly devour pure elves. The great sacrifice was originally only held once every 10 years, but because of his arrival, the great sacrifice was held continuously. Finally, one day, the secret in the inner hall was discovered by an intern of the temple guards. This intern is Mayfair. She is the reincarnation of Gloria. Malik sighed and said, but she didn't really awaken. Maybe it's because it's not the time yet. At that time, she, who was still looking forward to becoming a goddess guard, witnessed the cruel scene in the inner hall. She tried to expose and resist, but in the end, she was sent up the mountain as a new sacrifice. She escaped again, but in order to meet the requirements of the temple, the village had to change the sacrifice temporarily. Jolena, Dr. Gores said subconsciously, and then remembered the pair of particularly plump red lips and couldn't help but shiver. Captain Malik nodded. That day, Mayfair, who learned about this matter, quietly sneaked into the temple. In the inner hall, she saw the girl who replaced her being cruelly eaten. She saw the girl crawling to her in pain, asking for help. Finally, regret and self-blame made the immature power of the goddess Gloria go berserk in her body. And the result of going berserk is the hometown of the elves that you see now. Then we. Dr. Gores opened his mouth. When he heard this, he had already guessed the general situation. Malik looked at him. The power of Gloria is reincarnation and rebirth. When Mayfair destroyed everything and woke up, she forced herself to create the elves' hometown of the elves, because she couldn't accept the fact that she destroyed the elves' hometown. She forced herself to create the elves' hometown of the elves, and let time stop forever on the day before the destruction. No. Dr. Gores frowned. This isn't right. There should only be one Mayfair. Why are there two? Why can we still jump back and forth between the first day and the second day? I don't understand either. Malik shook his head. This is also something that I have always been puzzled about. Perhaps becoming an official member of the Temple Guards has always been Mayfair's wish, so she created two similar, present days, with different identities. In other words, Gores looked at the Mayfair of the second day, who was still working hard to destroy the protective shield released by Boss Luo's earrings. No matter if it's the first day or the second day of the elves, what we experienced is just history. Some dust fell from Boss Luo's fingers. The Mayfair of the second day stopped with a tired look on her face. She looked at Luocio with a complicated gaze and said with a hoarse voice, You are so determined to stop me? You seem to have calmed down. Boss Luo said calmly, Then, shouldn't we consider letting the other one be quiet as well? The Mayfair of the second day's expression changed. The huge leaf bud of the purple-black plant was slowly blooming. ######### PS. 82/84. Chapter 1825. A chaotic and fearful aura slowly spread out from the huge leaf that was about to bloom. The moment this aura appeared, the entire desolate elven hometown suddenly became unstable. It seemed like it would break at any time. The night sky was shaking, and so was the earth. Cracks that could be seen with the naked eye appeared in the air. This was an extremely peculiar sight. It even had a unique sense of fragmentary beauty that was worthy of its name. The next day Mayfair subconsciously reached out to touch a crack that appeared beside her. Her fingers trembled slightly. I didn't expect it to be so fast. No, I wasted too much time just now. Then, the next day Mayfair glared at Luocio, who seemed to be innocent. Even so, the next day Mayfair didn't attack Boss Luo again. She took a deep breath and looked determined. Then, she turned into a dark light and shot directly into the leaf that was about to bloom. She walked into the blossoming crack. Boss Luo didn't think much. After the next day Mayfair acted, he jumped into the crack. Before he left, he glanced at Dr. Gores. Mr. Gores, I'll leave this matter to you temporarily. I think you can handle it well. How do I know how to handle it? Dr. Gores opened his mouth, but when he saw Boss Luo's figure disappear into the leaf, he could only smile bitterly. If it were him, he would never jump into the unknown without thinking. At this moment, it seemed that only he and Malik were left. The two of them looked at each other. Dr. Gores frowned. You can treat us as intruders or something else, but we don't have the possibility to fight against you now. Instead, our current mission is to rescue you. Malik didn't say a word. He just looked at Dr. Gores's eyes, which reminded Dr. Gores of the dormant viper's eyes. It seemed that after learning the truth about the intruders, servants, outside the chessboard, Malik quite hated this matter. However, right at this moment, some other movements attracted the attention of the two of them. In the wreckage of the lookout in front of them, someone was pushing away the stones that pressed on his body and got out little by little. Looking carefully, Dr. Gores found that this figure was Mr. Wally, who had controlled today 4 countless times in the inner hall of the lookout. He was still there. He must have saved his life in the impact of the battle, but now he looked quite terrible. Die! Just as this, Mr. Wally, who looked extremely wretched, crawled out with difficulty, a voice filled with hatred, anger, and even madness suddenly sounded. It was the voice of Mr. Sneeve. Gores could already recognize it at the moment it sounded. Sure enough, it was Sneeve. He came out from nowhere, and the sharp blade in his hand was bursting out a strong light. In a hurry, Mr. Wally, who had just escaped, subconsciously looked back. But the moment Mr. Wally turned back, he felt that his heart was directly pierced by a sharp object. Mr. Wally, who still had a puzzled expression on his face. He had just escaped, even if he was a little weak, but as long as he had some time, how could this happen? Who are you? Mr. Wally looked at the old and ugly face that appeared in front of him, and he even felt the resentment in Sneeve's eyes at this time. He was completely at a loss. Die! Mr. Sneeve gritted his teeth, stirred the sharp blade in his hand at Mr. Wally's heart, and then quickly pulled it out. Mr. Wally's body fell forward due to inertia. His body twitched a few times, and soon there was no movement. He was completely dead. Mr. Sneeve suddenly knelt on the ground, and the weapon in his hand slipped from his hand. He stared at Mr. Wally's body, picked up the weapon on the ground, and then stabbed Mr. Wally's body again. He was completely in a frenzy. Enough, he's completely dead. Dr. Gores frowned with a trace of anger. I know you have a deep resentment against Mr. Wally, but you killed him too quickly. There are still many things that I want to ask clearly. Mr. Sneeve didn't seem to hear him, and he stabbed Mr. Wally's body until it was badly mutilated. Dr. Gores had to frown. Even if you cut him into pieces, your former companions won't be resurrected, and what you have done won't be erased. Wake up, you rubbish old man. Mr. Sneeve's hands paused, and then, after a strange cry, he directly threw away the weapon. He screamed at Dr. Gores again, as if he was completely crazy, and rushed out of the temple ruins. Dr. Gores didn't intend to chase him, but he frowned and didn't say anything. After a while, Gores said in a low voice, Tina, how long are you going to hide? I'm scared. Mr. Sneeve's appearance is really scary. Miss Tina's figure appeared behind a pillar at this time. Miss Tina slowly walked out of the shadow, with a smile on her face that no one knew the meaning of. In fact, the twin maids, both the elder and the younger sister, were quite beautiful. When they were separated, Gores was the chief surgeon. At that time, he knew that they would grow up to be beautiful women. But Dr. Gores didn't have time to appreciate these at this time. Instead, he frowned. How long have you been here? Why haven't you appeared? The maid looked scared. Doctor, Mr. Sneeve and I are the weakest in the team. If we don't protect ourselves well, it will be very dangerous. Dr. Gores shook his head. He wouldn't care too much about this matter with Tina. As for Mr. Wally, he was already dead, and it was useless to care too much about it. At this time, there was no hope that the captain could walk out of Yilay smoothly. Hey Tina. Suddenly, Dr. Girls said, I think there might be some problems with the chessboard world we're in. Why do you say so, Doctor? The maid couldn't help but ask in surprise. Dr. Gores said slowly, about Xiaolina. I actually saw her before, in our world. But she wasn't an elf, but a receptionist at the headquarters of the Magician Association in the Inhuman Domain. Miss Tina opened her small lips subconsciously. It was a time of complete darkness. It felt that the space here was very big, completely different from the size of Yilay from the outside. But no matter if it was Boss Luo or, the next day, Mayfair, they could clearly see each other's appearance in the darkness. This seems to be the inner heart of the first day Mayfair, Boss Luo said after sizing it up. To be exact, the next day Mayfair sighed with a complicated expression. It's the inner heart of the former me that was completely closed. Boss Luo looked at her. Mayfair of the second day turned her face away. Because I couldn't control the power of the glyph in my body and destroyed the elven homeland, for a long time, I had completely sealed myself. Just like everything I see now, everything I see now, everything I can't see. But the next day, didn't you walk out of that painful memory? Boss Luo said. I didn't. The next day Mayfair smiled bitterly. This can only be said to be an escape. Maybe it's because I was escaping from this pain in the past. In the crazy self-reproach, the power of a Gloria in my body seemed to respond. She is the first day that you mentioned. She was the reason why I couldn't walk out of yesterday. She is actually the self that I couldn't face. Boss Luo thought for a while and said, So all this time, you would kill her through the trial road? Why? The next day Mayfair smiled bitterly. It's probably an escape. The power of Gloria has been driving me to do this. Actually, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't kill her. Only when I feel that you invaders appear, I will do it. Because I don't want her to realize the truth in her world because of your intervention. If that's the case, why did you leave the diary in the treehouse? Boss Luo muttered. If you don't want your former self to come in contact with the truth and stop at the last day, it seems that there's no need to let her know that she has been backtracking in time. Mayfair of the second day shook his head and said, That was not my intention, but I had no choice but to do so. As I said, our world is being invaded by a powerful force, and the home of the elves is the last piece of pure land that has bitterly held on. However, once I left the elven hometown, I was already involved by this invading force. It was driving me to do this. She looked at Boss Luo with a pale face and said, From the first time before I went back in time, I was already branded by this force. It didn't disappear. Even in the backtracking of time, it has been driving me to do the same thing subconsciously. I can't resist. Maybe I shouldn't have left the elven hometown and went out of the roaring forest to escape. This action is the source of all the pain. Then what do you plan to do now? Boss Luo asked curiously. The next day Mayfair was silent for a while and said softly, Actually, there's no need to separate the past and the present. Countless todays. I have been carefully maintaining the fake yesterday with great difficulty. However, you came and ruthlessly destroyed the false yesterday. Even if I restore everything this time, one day in the future, there will always be someone like you, the same thing will happen, and yesterday will be destroyed again. Maybe it's time for me to face this truth. Instead of saying that this is the fake yesterday created by the first day, because I don't want to face the pain of the tomorrow. It's better to say that this is actually the me who has always been awake and has never really faced all of this. You plan to take back the first day Mayfair, right? Boss Luo felt the determination of the next day Mayfair at this time. She nodded and smiled sadly. After all, no matter what, I can't let the isolation of the elven hometown disappear and eventually become the plaything of the invading force. This is already the last place in our world and the last remnant of the world created by Gloria and Prima. Even if I don't want to, the divine power of Gloria that I inherited will not allow me to do so. You are the world created by Gloria and Prima? Boss Luo was stunned and asked subconsciously. Is there a problem? The next day Mayfair said casually, Oh, by the way, their legend in the elven hometown should have been erased by the invading force long ago. It's not strange that you don't know. Even in the elven homeland, the elves don't know about this matter. All they know is that the two goddesses created the elven homeland. In fact, most of them have probably forgotten about it and take it as a matter of course. I see. Boss Luo seemed to be talking to himself. I finally figured it out. Figured out what? The next day Mayfair subconsciously frowned and asked. Compared to this, Boss Luo suddenly said, perhaps what you should consider now is whether the first day Mayfair is willing to return to your side. You mean? The next day Mayfair seemed to feel something and suddenly turned around. In this dark but visible space, behind her and Luo Qiu, a figure emitting an aura of death appeared out of nowhere. The first day Mayfair. However, unlike the pure and innocent appearance of the first day of Mayfair, the current her appeared to be extremely chaotic, like a puppet controlled by some kind of power. She stretched out her hand, and something grabbed the next day's Mayfair by the throat and pulled her in front of her. *T. This is her inner world. Here, she is stronger. The next day Mayfair instantly understood the situation at this time. However, the goddess's power in her body was madly surging into the first day Mayfair. In this inner world that belonged to the first day, it was obvious that the first day was stronger, much stronger. At the moment when the next day Mayfair was in danger, Boss Luo directly slashed out with his sword. The blade of holy light rushed forward. However, in this inner world, the first day Mayfair's eyes turned and instantly melted the powerful sword light, or rather, it didn't display the power that it should have. This power from the chessboard profession seemed to have no effect in this inner world. ########PS. As usual. Chapter 1826. Boss Luo slashed a few more times with his sword. It wasn't that the class power given by chessboard didn't have any effect here. It was just that it was weakened a lot. This point seemed to have been hinted at when they were in the inner hall of the temple. At that time, in the inner hall, the sword couldn't break the walls of the inner hall. The home of elves was a pure land created by the two goddesses to resist the invading power. It was the power of chessboard. It was full of the divine power of the two goddesses. Especially in a symbolic place like the temple, the concentration of divine power was naturally higher. Naturally, the reduction of the class power of chessboard servants was more significant. After several fruitless attacks, Luo Qiu stopped. At the same time, the next day Mayfair was suddenly released. She didn't know when it started, but the blooming patterns on her body had disappeared. This meant that, the next day Mayfair's goddess power had been completely drained by the first day. Seeing, the next day Mayfair's body falling into the bottomless dark abyss, Boss Luo moved. He jumped down and caught the next day Mayfair before she fell completely. The moment he caught the next day Mayfair, a floating slate appeared under Boss Luo's feet. He stood steadily. Now, Mayfair of the second day, who had lost all of her goddess power, was extremely weak. She was afraid that even her life force was about to be exhausted. She looked like a lamp that had run out of oil, but she still reacted to the slate that appeared. How can this place be? I think we need a place to stand. It may be more convenient. Boss Luo looked at the slate that he was standing on and said, Impossible. This is her inner world. How can you? The next day Mayfair seemed to think of something and said in disbelief, Could it be that the strength of your willpower can surpass her control of her inner world? This should be a good explanation. Boss Luo said casually. Then, he waved his hand. The slate under his feet began to extend at this moment. In the blink of an eye, a straight path was extended from the slate. Sure enough, the next day Mayfair's eyes flashed a glimmer of light. She subconsciously grabbed Boss Luo's arm and said, You can help her. You can help her get out of this heart of regret. I can't do it anymore. My power has been taken away. I'm the one who failed. But you still have a chance. You take a rest. Saying that, Boss Luo didn't promise her anything. Instead, he created another road upwards, the road to Mayfair from the first day. Mayfair from the first day was now at the end of the road. She seemed to be waiting. She seemed to be waiting for Luochio's arrival. Soon, Boss Luo followed the path and arrived in front of the first day. Looking at the first day Mayfair in front of him, Luochio found that she seemed to be much calmer. Even though Mayfair of the first day's aura was still as wild as before, she had a trace of calmness. Even her gaze had become much gentler, and there was a trace of color in it. It was no longer empty and empty. You're here. This was the first sentence she said when Luocio arrived. Her voice was soft and gentle. You are the Mayfair I know. No. She shook her head and then said with a light smile, I remember you, the Mayfair. After taking back the power that originally belonged to me, I remembered everything. Of course, the things that happened recently will be clearer. Boss Luo nodded and said softly, Then you should know the reason why we came to the elven homeland. Yes. The first day Mayfair nodded but soon shook her head. It's okay. You don't want to be controlled, right? I don't want to leave this place. Can you stay here with me? Don't care about the so-called things you get from the mission. Stay with me forever. With that, the dark time suddenly turned white. Black could devour everything, and so could white. What are you thinking about? A soft female voice came from behind him, accompanied by the soft touch of the girl's hands. He was mischievously blindfolded by someone. On a grassy slope in front of a field. Don't you need to train today? He took the girl's hands away from his eyes and smiled. Today, Captain Malik praised me. He said that I was very serious in training, so he gave me half a day's rest. The girl smiled slightly. She sat down beside him. The sweet smile on her face was very suitable for the grass swaying in the wind. There was even a sweet fragrance floating in the air. For you. The girl held an exquisite bag with both hands and pulled open the string tied to it. I bought it on the way. It just came out of the oven. It was as if it was her favorite item. In the bag, there was a milky white candy with a trace of heat. Very good. He smiled, took a piece from the bag, put it in his mouth, and carefully chewed it. She talked about the things that happened during her training. Many of them were tough times. You know, I'm actually very scared. Maybe I won't be able to pass the test and become a Real Temple Guard. This is my dream. The girl's mood suddenly became gloomy, as if she wanted to find someone to rely on. She gently rested her head on his shoulder. He smiled and said, The hard work you put in when you leave early and come back late, and when you don't want to train, when you feel too tired and don't want to force yourself, but in the end, when you grit your teeth and persevere, maybe that's the dream you're pursuing. The girl raised her head and looked at him, her eyes flickering. He said softly, Since you've already put in so much effort, then I think, even if you can't achieve your dream in the end, there will always be some greater things that will quietly come to your side. The girl's eyes gradually became hazy. Luo, has someone ever told you that your eyes can always calm people? Stay with me, okay? The girl closed her eyes. She wanted to kiss his lips, so she moved her body closer to him. Soon, she touched something. It was a very sweet smell. The girl suddenly opened her eyes, but the boy in front of her had a smile on his face. He took the opportunity to put the candy in the bag to her lip. Be careful, you'll get fat. He winked and chuckled. You're so annoying. She puffed up her cheeks angrily, and her face was slightly red, like a red apple that was about to be picked. However, she seemed reluctant to hit him. After patting him a few times, she hugged her knees and looked at the fields in the distance. A gentle breeze blew on them. The elven home was peaceful and far away, as if there were no worries. Suddenly, the girl said softly, Tomorrow? Tomorrow's grand ceremony, do you want to come? He smiled and said, Everyone has to attend, I think I have no reason not to go. She glared at him and immediately stood up, quickly running away, but a voice came, At dusk, I'll wait for you at the water wheel next to the creek tavern. The wind covered her next words. Perhaps it was something like, You must come. He watched her figure disappear at the end of the field, then lay down on the grass on the slope and closed his eyes, as if he was enjoying the peace here. The lights were reflected on the stream. On the footboard in front of the water wheel, the girl looked at the people and lights on the other side. She had been absent-minded for a long time, and the sound of flowing water was her thoughts from time to time. She didn't know where it flowed from, nor did she know where it would flow to. But the reflections of the lights were always in a fixed place, swaying. Perhaps she was a bit cold, so she curled up her body. There was a squeaking sound from the pedals and the sound of footsteps. She turned around and saw him coming, and a flower-like smile quickly appeared on her face. This was the first time she smiled all day. "You're so slow." It was as if she was blaming him. He said apologetically, "It's a bit crowded, sorry, I'm late." The young girl walked up to him, and even stuck out her nose, sniffing hard a few times in front of him. "There's the smell of so many wild women. There must be a lot of people sending you flowers." He just raised his empty hands. "Let's go." The girl's face showed a satisfied smile, and directly took his arm, hugging it tightly. "Don't miss the parade, and then you won't get the goddess blessing if you're not pious." "Have you seen the goddess?" he suddenly asked. She widened her eyes and said, "How is that possible?" He said casually, "But you're training in the temple every day, haven't you seen the goddess even once?" She rolled her eyes and said, "I'm just an intern, okay? Training is only in the training camp, other places are forbidden. I'm very obedient and never run around." "That's a pity," he said with a smile. She said, "When I officially become a guard, I'll have a chance to see the goddess. At that time, I'll tell you what the goddess looks like." "That's great. But how are you going to thank me?" She looked at him expectantly. "I bought it on the way. It's fresh out of the oven." He handed her an exquisite small bag. This was not what she expected, but she seemed to like it very much and accepted it happily. The parade soon stopped at the venue of the grand ceremony. The young elf men and women were gathered in front of the crowd, waiting devoutly, waiting for the moment when the sacrifice girl brought the goddess blessing. Probably tonight, some hotels or bachelor apartments in the village would have good business. Old Eric's family was in the apartment business, but he did not consider whether he should temporarily increase the rent. Because the sacrifice girls who went up the mountain today were the 3 women of old Eric's family. 3 sacrifices in one family, such a huge honor had fallen on old Eric's head, and he had fainted from happiness long ago. She held his hand and stood in the crowd nervously, listening to the whispers of the elf men and women. Her palms unknowingly became moist. "Are you nervous?" he asked in a low voice. "Who's not nervous?" she said angrily, then quietly pointed to the front. "Look at them, their bodies are tense. Don't you think they're nervous? You don't look nervous at all." "It's not the first time I've participated." He smiled. "That's right." She shook her head. "But in the past, I only watched others, but this time is different. This time, it's us. It's about to start," he suddenly said. The sacrifice girl was wearing a white dress. Accompanied by the black-armored oracle, she slowly walked to the statue of the goddess. She was praying in a low voice. Above the statue of the goddess, a hazy shadow of the goddess was slowly being born. The village elder said to let the young men and women who wanted to receive blessings come out and receive the goddess's blessings. The crowd began to separate. The young men and women held hands and slowly walked past her and him, but she didn't have the intention to move at this time. He looked at her and asked, "Aren't we going?" She lowered her head and didn't say anything. After a while, she gently pulled his clothes and said in a hoarse voice, "Luo, let's come again next time, okay?" "Why?" he asked in confusion. "Haven't you been looking forward to today for a long time?" She raised her head, and there was fear on her face. "I don't know, I'm afraid." "What are you afraid of?" "I'm afraid that it will be gone this time." She whispered, "Do you know, this kind of happiness only comes once in a lifetime. I don't want to lose it in the future. Elves who want to be united can only participate in the ceremony once," he said matter-of-factly. "It's not like that." She shook her head and grabbed his clothes tightly. If we only stop here this time, then we can come again next time. Next time, we will only stop here, then we can come again next time. So, let's stop here, okay? We will come again next time." "Don't you want an ending?" he said softly. "I don't know. I'm sorry." She lowered her head, then let go of her hand and ran into the crowd, disappearing into the crowd. He was left standing in the crowd, in the midst of the smoke. Then, the smoke dissipated and black flowers bloomed everywhere. They shattered and disappeared bit by bit. The opposite shore began to dim bit by bit. She returned to the water wheel station she was waiting for and sat there, looking at the disappearing street, the disappearing crowd, and the stream that gradually stopped. Finally, the entire world disappeared, and only this lonely water wheel station was left. She was still sitting here. Suddenly, the squeaking sound of footsteps sounded with the arrival of footsteps. She turned back abruptly. Luo, why are you? She stood up in a panic, her face pale. Don't come. You disappear. You disappear first. I'll be fine soon. I'll be fine soon. We'll meet again later. You disappear first. He still walked in front of her. The darkness that kept expanding was unable to touch him in the end, until he finally arrived in front of her. I've been here for a long time. He looked at her and said, This is the 1000th time. Miss Mayfair, don't you want to wake up? I don't want to listen. She held her ears tightly. I don't want to listen to you. You disappear. You disappear. I'll create a new beginning. You disappear. You disappear. If I really disappear, he said softly. He said softly, then, can you still find this place? Miss Mayfair, I came here in response to your expectations. She looked at him blankly. He said calmly, I think it's already possible. What's your wish? Can you give me another candy? She looked up with a sad smile. I'm talking about this. With that said, the elf lady rushed forward recklessly and hugged his body tightly. She stood on her tiptoes and touched the sweet smell that she had been waiting for a long time. After a long time, white patterns instantly blossomed under the elf lady's feet. Like ripples dripping into water, they slowly spread out, fading away all the darkness. What followed was a pure world. Thank you for accompanying me for the 1000th time. The elf lady opened her arms and gave him a smile. Then, she slowly closed her eyes. Finally, the elf lady's body turned into a ray of light. When the light faded from the elven lady's body, she no longer had the appearance of Mayfair. She had the appearance of an even smaller little girl. Subworld Administrator Number 00361 Araya. Dear Root Manager, what can I do for you? ######### PS. 83/84. Chapter 1827. Boss Luo was no stranger to Araya. Whether it was the Araya in his own subworld or the other subworlds that he had briefly visited, he had come into contact with them. However, the Araya in front of him, who claimed to be 0361, was slightly different from the one he had come into contact with before. To be specific, she was slightly duller. You are not complete, right? Boss Luo sized her up and had an answer. Confirmed, this is part of the carrier. However, it does not affect communication. Sub-Administrator 0361 has a complete data record. Boss Luo nodded and walked closer. He saw that the girl in the white dress was motionless at this moment. Tell me your story. I am talking about the part about the two goddesses, Gloria and Prema. The girl in the white dress in front of him, number 0361, began her calm narration. This world belonged to the magic civilization, and it was already the 6th reboot. In the beginning, in order to promote the development of the civilization, the will of the subworld personally went down and projected the two goddesses of creation, namely Gloria and Prema. Gloria represented reincarnation, while Prema represented creation. Thus, under the guidance of the two goddesses, this world ushered in rapid development. So, in addition to writing the script in the dark, you will also personally go down? Boss Luo heard something different. Confirmed, any method that can allow the hotbed to hatch to meet the original conditions should be tried. Boss Luo nodded. Continue. Under the narration of number 0361, Boss Luo quickly understood the world in this chessboard. In a short time, it had already reached the predetermined progress. However, just as the two goddesses were planning to continue the development of the world, a powerful force invaded. It crazily swallowed the will of the subworld. This powerful invading force even quickly plundered the origin of the subworld. In the end, in order to preserve the most precious civilization data of the child world, the two goddesses created the final elven home. They condensed the last of their power within the elven home, barely resisting the invasion of the mysterious power. However, at this time, because most of the subworld's origins had been plundered, the consciousness of Araya 0361 sleeping in Gloria and Prama couldn't wake up. Until now, as the reincarnator of Glyph, Mephistopheles had also retrieved the complete divine power of Glyph. After experiencing several shocking changes, he finally succeeded in awakening part of the consciousness of Alaya 0361, which was hidden within this power. In other words, half of you are still in Prama's body. Boss Luo thought for a moment and said, I haven't found any traces of Prama in the elven homeland. Oh, there should be a dagger item that can summon her power. After the creation of the elven homeland, the invading forces have never given up on the idea of devouring it completely. They have been involved many times. What do you mean? Through setting the so-called mission, entering the elven homeland, nibbling away the remaining power of the two goddesses step by step, and finally successfully breaking through the isolation between the elven homeland and the outside world. The so-called servant is the executor of the complete devouring plan. So, Boss Luo muttered, if someone continuously activates the game chessboard, they can continuously reduce your power. However, because the power of chessboard has quietly entered the elven homeland, so even if you know this is happening, you can only watch. I once thought of doing something, but as the reincarnator of Gloria, I fell into a state of chaos, so the degree of the invading forces kept increasing. Now that you have woken up, then what do you plan to do? Boss Luo couldn't help but ask curiously. It was the first time he heard of a subworld's administrator being reduced to such a state. Of course, it was not impossible. In the crevices of the dimensions there were indeed powerful beings with such power. Other things aside, Heaven had always been exploring and conquering new subworlds, and no one knew how many subworlds they had conquered and spread the legends. The erosion is irreversible, and my remaining power is not enough to restart the world again. Even if I wake up now, I can't stop the worst from happening. Therefore, before I finally die, I hope to preserve the data of the 6 experiments of this subworld, or even send it out. It's a pity that I haven't been able to connect to the primordial will, which is the manager's system will. I haven't seen it either, Boss Luo suddenly said. You are the root administrator and have the highest authority. This data can be temporarily given to you. As she spoke, the white-clothed girl slowly raised her hands, and the data of the 6 restarts of the subworld condensed into a ball of light, and slowly floated in front of Boss Luo. You're giving it to me? Boss Luo couldn't help but frown. Confirm, Boss Luo shook his head and said, but I don't have any use for this thing. The white-clothed girl said slowly, please give it to any administrator, and it may be able to optimize the civilization experiment. I suggest that it is best to give it to a sub-administrator of the same civilization experiment site. Boss Luo played with the ball of light in his hand and suddenly asked, you've been holding on just to protect this data. Now that you've given it to me, that means you have no reason to hold on. Are you planning to give up? A negative. I will use the last of my power to fight against the invading forces. Aren't you afraid that you will completely disappear? I don't need to be afraid. My duty is to monitor and protect subworld number 0361. Don't be in such a hurry to do this. Boss Luo shook his head. Perhaps there are other solutions. After all, the home of elves hasn't been completely consumed yet. Question. Does the root administrator have the authority to stop the self-destruction program to subworld number 0361, Araya? Let's just assume so. Boss Luo said casually. Understood. Boss Luo thought for a while and said, the part of you that exists in Mayfair has awakened. What about the original Mayfair? She's just a carrier, and she has completed her mission. Now I've awakened, and Mayfair doesn't need to appear. However, the carrier Mayfair seems to have some abnormal emotions. Do you need me to appear as Mayfair? No. Boss Luo thought for a while and immediately changed his mind. For now, not yet. Understood. Why did it take so long? Looking at the huge leaf bud that wanted to bloom but seemed to be stuck, Dr. Gores couldn't help but frown. The two Mayfair and Boss Luo had been inside for quite some time. There were visible cracks all around. The land of elves seemed like it would completely shatter with a light touch. At that moment, he was with Tina and Marek, who had a gloomy expression. As for Snake, after killing Mr. Wally, his whereabouts were temporarily unknown. At this moment, Ms. Maid suddenly said, "Come quickly, these cracks seem to be disappearing." The cracks that appeared in the air were fading away bit by bit, until they disappeared. The fear that seemed like they would shatter at any time also disappeared from their hearts bit by bit. At the same time, the huge leaf bud in midair completely bloomed at this moment. A light ball slowly floated down from the leaf bud. When the light dispersed, Boss Luo and Mayfair appeared at the same time. Boss Luo still looked energetic, but Mayfair was unconscious. From the clothes, Gores quickly recognized that this Mayfair was the next day Mayfair. Then, what about the first day Mayfair? You're finally out, Captain. Dr. Gores quickly stepped forward and looked at the unconscious, the next day Mayfair, saying subconsciously, what about the other one? At this moment, Ms. Maid Tina also stepped forward. As for Goddess, Prama, Oracle Malik, he watched from a few meters away, quietly retreating. There's only one Miss Mayfair, Boss Luo said calmly at this time. Only one person. Only one person? Dr. Gores couldn't help but be startled and frowned. That means this time backtracking is really over? No, I didn't receive any instructions from a chessboard. This mission is not over yet. Speaking of this, Mr. Malik just left, Boss Luo suddenly said, and turned his eyes, indicating them to look behind. Dr. Gores and Tina looked back at the same time, and sure enough, Malik was gone. I'll leave Mr. Malik in your hands, Luochu suddenly said at this time. I think I need to take a break for a while. After all, it's quite dangerous. It's okay, leave it to us. Dr. Gores quickly nodded. That guy is very weak now, it should be easy to deal with him. Without waiting for the maid, Tina, to react, Dr. Gores grabbed her hand and rushed out. In just a blink of an eye, they were nowhere to be seen. These two servants, do you need to kill them? Suddenly, the girl in white appeared beside Boss Luo and asked. Luochu smiled and said, If this is the case, I'm also a servant. Are you going to kill me too? The girl in white stared at Boss Luo for a while and said slowly, Then you'd better destroy me. The boss was speechless at this time. He had to shake his head and said, Don't talk about self-destruction. Come, accompany me to do something first. Accompany me on the road of trial. Doubts? Doctor, why should we chase Malik? On the way, the maid suddenly pulled Dr. Gore's hand and stopped. Mr. Luo said that he was a little tired. Is that true? Don't think about it. Gores quickly said at this time. At least don't think about it now. Kay died in the temple. Do you know what it means? The maid said indifferently. It means that Mr. Varley is likely to face this punishment roulette now. Gores nodded. At the same time, it means that our hope of passing the final Guardian is all on the captain. If we can't defeat the Guardian, it means that we will never be able to leave the world of chessboard. You also want to see your sister again, right? Of course, Tina likes my sister the most. The maid showed a sweet smile. Dr. Gores shook his head. He separated the twins with surgery. No one knew better than him what they were like, but in fact, this is not the most important thing. Then what is the important thing? Tina couldn't help but ask curiously. Dr. Gores frowned and said, "The important thing is, I suspect that our captain may have some unknown relationship with chessboard, or the world of chessboard." Tina's expression suddenly became dignified. Dr. Gores quickly said, "You see, as the owner of chessboard, Mr. Varley has always been the winner. No one can defeat him in a challenge. The game of chessboard should be a way for him to have fun. But this time, his servant died. I have seen Cade Varley. He came twice with the power of the ultimate profession, but he was still defeated. Moreover, the way he was defeated was like the way Mr. Varley used to play with those challengers. So, can't you suspect something?" "Tina is just a little maid. Tina doesn't know as much as the doctor," the maid said softly. Dr. Gores rolled his eyes. "Listen, the origin of this chessboard is mysterious, but I know that the chessboard can't be produced by the inhuman realm. The origin of this thing is not that simple. Cade Varley is dead. Mr. Varley is likely to be punished by the punishment roulette at this time, or even be swallowed by the chessboard. But our game has to continue. Don't forget that the servant of the young lady hasn't appeared yet." "So what?" Tina was surprised. "There is one thing that I think you don't know," Dr. Gores said mysteriously at this time. "Do you know who was the owner of chessboard before Mr. Varley?" "Who?" "Miss Gong Lina." "What?" Dr. Gores said seriously. "I accidentally heard Mr. Butler mention it. He once said that chessboard was originally a birthday gift from Miss Gong Lina on Mr. Varley's 100th birthday." Before the maid could be surprised, she looked straight ahead. "I see it, Malik. Castle Banquet Hall." Mr. Varley's palm that was reaching for the function card box suddenly stopped, and then his eyes suddenly opened. He saw Cade Varley's servant card in the roaring forest. Area quietly turned into flying ash. "Cade Varley is dead." Mr. Varley looked at his servant card that disappeared in a daze. He subconsciously looked at the people around the chessboard, and took a small step back involuntarily. At the same time, a red and black roulette slowly appeared in front of him. ######PS. As usual. Chapter 1828. The punishment roulette had appeared for the third time. The first time, it took Mr. Cor of the inspection team away directly. The second time, Mr. Varley was able to avoid it once because of the function card. However, when it appeared for the third time, and it appeared in front of Mr. Varley again, he seemed to be unable to find a way to avoid the roulette's punishment. Although the punishment roulette always had grids to avoid all punishments, Mr. Varley knew very well that no one had ever successfully turned the roulette's pointer to this special grid. He had studied the chessboard for a long time, but he had never really turned this punishment roulette. Therefore, he had never really understood the punishment roulette. But he had seen it many times. He knew what kind of reaction and despair the masters who faced the punishment roulette had when they failed. "I lost. I actually lost?" Mr. Varley grabbed the edge of the chessboard with both hands. What kind of fear made this noble vampire with a noble bloodline break out in cold sweat at this moment? The sweat had already wet his forehead in the short span of a few breaths. A few strands of hair even fell down, looking messy. "Yes, my brother Varley. You really lost, although I am also surprised." Miss Gong Lina restrained the smile on her face at this time. She seemed to be really surprised. "This is the first time I see you lose the chessboard game. It is also the first time I see you really turning this punishment roulette." "I don't believe it." Mr. Varley calmed down and shook his head. "I won't lose. The punishment roulette shouldn't appear in front of me." With that said, the master of the castle slowly retreated. He retreated, turned around, and fled. However, the punishment roulette that had appeared didn't seem to allow a loser to disappear in front of it. So, the back of the blood-red hand appeared in an instant and grabbed Mr. Varley's limbs at a very fast speed. pull. Mr. Varley resisted the pull of the blood-red arm, but his body was pulled to the front of the roulette little by little. Finally, the master of the castle gritted his teeth. His eyes turned blood-red, and the sharp vampire fangs broke through his lips. Blood-red light was crazily released from Mr. Varley's body like smoke, and a powerful force began to shake the entire castle. At this stage in the modern world, this was also a very powerful force. Miss Maid, who was training the Black Dragon and the Black Hound, took a few more glances and then continued to train the dogs. However, Black Hound and Black Dragon were frightened by Mr. Wally's power. Although it was their instinct to bring something back, it was also their instinct to fear danger, okay? At this time, Miss Gong Lina's eyes lit up at the powerful power released by Mr. Varley. She muttered to herself, "He is much stronger than when he left the clan. It seems that these years have not been wasted. He is indeed growing well." But unfortunately, no matter how powerful Mr. Varley's vampire power was at this time, it could not change the fact that he was pulled in front of the punishment roulette. "I don't want to. I don't want." In front of the roulette, Mr. Varley's face had an unprecedented panic expression. Even his low magnetic voice had unknowingly become unusually sharp, and even had a hint of immaturity. "I don't want to. I don't want to spin it." At this time, Mr. Varley looked at Miss Gong Lina and screamed, "Sister, save me! Save me! I don't want to spin this roulette." This was completely a child's voice. In front of the punishment roulette, Mr. Varley's power gradually faded. At the same time, his body shrank little by little. In just a moment, Mr. Varley, who had a mustache and tidied himself up elegantly and maturely, turned into a child who was only 12 or 13 years old. "Save me, sister, save me!" The ghoul bodyguards were shocked. They looked at their master's change in disbelief and horror, and even forgot to think. The crying child in front of them was actually their master? Butler Lisa was calm at this moment, as if he wasn't too surprised by this. Miss Gong Lina, on the other hand, shook her head. "What a naughty little brother. I originally thought that you would continue playing the adult game." Mr. Wally didn't care about Gong Lina's sarcasm at this time. He just tried his best to resist the punishment from the punishment roulette. But his palm was finally pressed on the roulette and was about to turn it. "I'll listen to you, Sister Gong Lina. I'll listen to you. I'll be obedient. Save me!" Varley screamed in horror, "Lisa! Help me! Help me! Miss, you should help the young master." Mr. Butler said slowly, "He's also Madam's child, just like you." The eldest daughter of the Tsimishes said calmly, "It's because we share the same mother that I've tolerated his misdeeds all these years. Wally, if you don't want to spin the wheel, then be my follower." "Your servant." Young Varley was shocked and blurted out, "You have that function card?" At this time, Miss Gong Lina flipped over a function card from her preparation area and said indifferently, "A last chance. You should be clear about the function of this card. This is your only chance. Choose for yourself." Young Varley couldn't control his fingers anymore. Seeing that the roulette was about to spin, young Varley clenched his teeth and held on. Finally, at the moment when the roulette was about to spin, young Varley screamed, "I promise you! I promise you!" In an instant, young Varley's body turned into a light and directly entered the chessboard. At the same time, a new servant card appeared beside Miss Gong Lina's servant card, Tang Tianlin. The punishment roulette disappeared quietly, and the banquet hall was quiet again. But the ghouls were scared and stood in the corner, trembling. "I'm sorry. This last chance can make a master who has lost a servant become the card holder's servant. This is a way to avoid spinning the punishment roulette, although it's not a very good ending for the master himself." Miss Gong Lina looked at Miss Maid at this time and sighed. "My younger brother has been quite naughty since he was young. He never grew up and always thought that he was mature enough, but in fact, his body and mind have been stuck at the age of 12 for some special reasons." "Oh." Miss Maid nodded and immediately asked curiously, "What happened just now? Hey, why is Mr. Varley missing?" There were a lot of things that happened just now. But Miss Maid didn't seem to notice anything. Nothing. Miss Gong Lina's face instantly sank and said indifferently, "I just have one more servant." Miss Maid smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, I also have 3 servants here, so I have one more. This woman is so annoying. It's my turn." Miss Gong Lina snorted, grabbed the golden dice and threw it at the chessboard. "Let's continue the game, after all, it's not over yet." The game was indeed not over. Chessboard, a roaring forest, home of the elf. It was indeed Oracle Malik. When Miss Maid Tina pointed it out, Dr. Gores had already seen Malik's figure. And, in addition to Malik, they also saw Mr. Sneeve at the same time. "It seems that Mr. Malik is really unlucky," Dr. Gores shook his head and said, "Of all people, he just had to meet the crazy Sneeve." At this time, Oracle Malik, who was seriously injured, was nailed to a rock by a sharp blade. Mr. Sneeve, at this time, was holding the sharp blade tightly, staring at Oracle Malik. Blood quickly flowed out from Oracle Malik's chest, but Dr. Gores and Tina looked at each other, and then when they approached, they heard Sneeve's roar. "You said you met Gerald, is it true?" Mr. Sneeve roared. "What did he say to you? In addition to the world outside the chessboard, what else did he say to you?" "You are." Malik spat out a mouthful of blood, "the companion that Gerald mentioned. So, you also came in. What else did he say?" "He said." Malik smiled at this time. "What did he say? I forgot." "You want to live, don't you?" Snake said coldly. "You want to live, don't you?" "Live," Malik sneered. "Then, continue to be your plaything. Tell me, even if it's just a sentence." "You." Malik slowly closed his eyes. "Perhaps you are someone who is more sinful than me. I can smell the extremely ugly smell on you. You must have done something that shouldn't be forgiven. Why are you looking at me like this? Why are you looking at me like this? Don't look at me like this. Don't look at me like this." In the hysterical roar, Sneeve pulled out the sharp blade again and again, and stabbed it into Malik's chest again and again. Blood splashed on his face, but he still continued to stab Malik's body mechanically. "Enough, he's completely dead." At this time, Dr. Gores grabbed Sneeve's shoulder and pushed him to the ground. "I thought he would only be lustful to women, but I didn't expect him to be so energetic to a male elf. Sneeve, it seems that I have to re-evaluate you." Mr. Sneeve, who fell to the ground, looked at Dr. Gores in horror and stepped back quickly. "Don't look at me! Don't look at me! Don't look at me!" He crawled to his feet, screamed something like a madman, and ran down the mountain at once. Dr. Gores didn't intend to chase him. Anyway, the movement limit was set. When the team could move again, no matter where he hid, he would be forced to come back. "Doctor, this oracle is really dead this time," the doctor said. At this time, Tina looked at Oracle Malik, who was full of holes. Oh, as Mr. Varley's follower, Cardil didn't kill the oracle even once. "I didn't expect that he would die in the hands of Mr. Sneeve in the end." "Don't say it." Dr. Gores shrugged and said, "Most of the time, history is written by the hands of shameless villains. By the way, if Malik dies like this, we don't seem to be able to report to the higher-up. Can't we do it with the corpse?" Tina blinked and said, "Probably." Dr. Gores shook his head and said as he wanted to carry away Malik's corpse. But at this time, Malik's corpse turned into a burst of photons and dissipated with the wind. After the corpse disappeared, there was a purple gem on the ground. Dr. Gores subconsciously picked up the gem. "This is the crystal that contains the divine power of Goddess, Prama. If you embed it into Prama's blade, you will get the power to defeat the Guardian. Treacherous traitor, congratulations to you and your team for completing the nightmarish challenge and successfully solving the Home of Elf incident. This is the reward that you deserve." "We passed the Home of Elf?" Dr. Gores was startled at this time and subconsciously looked at Tina. You heard it just now? I heard it. Ms. Maid pretended to be serious at this time. It called you a snitch. It is clearly a treacherous traitor. Treacherous traitor, it sounds so cool. She woke up from her deep sleep, and all she saw was a vast expanse of whiteness. She woke up with a start and sat up. The Mayfair of the second day looked around blankly. You woke up. It was the voice of Boss Luo. This seems to be the next day Mayfair, subconsciously said. The trial road? Technically speaking. Boss Luo smiled and said, this should be the starting point of the trial road. If you walk a few steps forward, you will be able to walk out. Why am I here? The next day Mayfair couldn't help but frown. Since you can pass through here and go from the first day to the second day, Luoqiu said calmly, then you should be able to go from the second day to the first day. What's the difference? The next day Mayfair smiled bitterly and said, it's just a fake past. The real home of Elf has been destroyed long ago. Ms. Mayfair. Boss Luo looked at the next day Mayfair and said softly, I'm talking about the first day Mayfair. When she left, I don't think she has any regret. She was startled, then lowered her head and murmured, is that so? She's gone. Have you heard of the world fragment? Boss Luo suddenly asked. The Mephistopheles of the second day subconsciously raised his head and revealed a blank expression. World fragment? Boss Luo nodded and said slowly, generally speaking, a world fragment is a small section cut out from the original poneglyph and then a new history. It can be the same, but it can also be different. Of course, it will be relatively small, sometimes even very small, and it is very easy to walk to the end. However, it's also real and can't be considered a fake. You mean? The next day Mayfair opened her mouth. Gloria's goddess power may be very strong, Boss Luo said bluntly, but it is not that easy to let history repeat on the same day continuously. However, if it is with the help of the world fragment, all you need to do is to move the time back and forth continuously. This way, it will be much simpler. The first day. The first day is not created by me when I lost my mind. She muttered to herself, it really exists, you created it. Boss Luo walked in front of her at this time. However, it is the divine power that responded to your expectations and did what it could do. As he spoke, Boss Luo waved his hand and the fog in front of them dispersed a little, revealing the world outside the white fog. Mountains and water, white clouds and fields, and there seemed to be the fragrance of crops. She saw the familiar street, the temple on the mountain, her home at the foot of the mountain, and the slowly turning water wheel beside the stream. You're still missing here, Luoqiu said softly, a Mayfair that starts tomorrow. Do you want to go in, Miss Mayfair? Can I? She stared blankly at the dreamy elven home. Boss Luo did not answer. He just opened her palm and put a well-packaged candy in her palm. The decision is yours. Because from now on, there is only one Miss Mayfair. As he spoke, Boss Luo walked into the white fog. She looked at his disappearing back. Taking a deep breath, Miss Mayfair walked directly to the elven home in front of her. She walked slowly, then quickly walked and then ran. She broke through the thick fog in an instant and ran into the green grass. She ran to a grassy slope overlooking a large field and lay down on the soft grass. She looked at the blue sky that was not dazzling. Suddenly, she sat up, opened her palm and looked at the candy in her palm. She carefully unwrapped it and put it into her mouth, carefully savoring its taste. She said, so sweet. Hashtag PS. 8484, finally. Chapter 1829. Road of Trials, in front of the third-level Gloria statue of the goddess. The statue of the goddess had been broken by Malik, and now there was only a pile of waste stones left. Boss Luo was picking up these stones and building the statue of the goddess of Gloria, little by little according to their original position. After a long time, a light slowly appeared beside Luocio. It was the girl in white clothes, number 0361 Araya. "You're back." Boss Luo didn't turn his head, and focused on the statue that was about to be built. The girl in white clothes slowly said, "The world fragment of the elven homeland has been completely cut. From now on, if there is no external intervention, this part of history will be completely sealed. I have also erased the only unstable factor, Mr. Wally, from the temple. Mr. Wally in the second day was killed by Sneeve, but Mr. Wally in the first day was still there. This was the ability to cut the world fragment from the history of the world. It was similar to copying." "You don't plan to enter the new elven homeland?" Boss Luo suddenly asked. The girl in white clothes said expressionlessly, "It's not necessary. The space is too small and can't be developed. It can't hatch an effective and complete civilization. Even if the interior is sealed, it will still be inside the chessboard. Finally, it's done." Boss Luo put the last piece of rock on the statue. He patted the dust on his hands, stepped back a few steps, and looked up and down. The newly built statue was full of cracks. With this kind of stacking, it could be pushed apart with a little force. "I plan to finish this game." Boss Luo looked at the girl in white clothes and said, "Before that, you will follow me." "Understood." With that, the white-clothed Alaya hid himself in the air. The moment the ripples shook, he disappeared. Boss Luo put a flower and a candy in front of the completed statue of the goddess. Then, he stretched and said goodbye. After he left, the cracks on the statue disappeared little by little. The statue returned to its original appearance, but this time, there was nothing to cover her eyes. The white fog in the trial path still covered all traces. "He's back." Dr. Gores and Tina stood up at the same time. They had been waiting at the place where the temple was destroyed. "Sorry, something personal happened. Did you wait long?" Luocio said apologetically. Dr. Gores said that they had just returned and explained that Malik was killed by Sneeve. This crystal was dropped. Dr. Jules removed the crystal at this time. "But I couldn't find the blade of Promer after searching around." "It's with me." Boss Luo took out the short blade. It was obtained from the next day's Mayfair, or rather, it was handed over by her. Dr. Gores didn't seem to be curious about the fact that Luocio could take out Promer's blade. Or maybe he had begun to get used to the ability of the captain to take out treasures from time to time. Without further ado, Kieran took Promer's blade and embedded it into the crystal. Instantly, the dull Promer's blade started to undergo some strange changes. There was an awe-inspiring aura emitting from Promer's blade. This was the item that could be used to deal with the final keeper. Then, when Boss Luo met Mr. Wally in the Godly Palace for the first time, Mr. Wally said that the item used to pass the game was actually a special kind of flower, which was used to make the keeper fall into a depressed state. Of course, it was a lie. Because Luocio didn't bring the correct code. Only Cade brought it. He was the real follower of Mr. Varley. "Let's leave here," Tina suggested. "We have stayed in the elven hometown for a long time. I want to go to a place," Boss Luo suddenly said. The two of them showed a puzzled expression at the same time. They saw Boss Luo jump to the high ground at this time, glancing at the ruins of the shrine as if he was looking for something. After a while, Boss Luo jumped toward a direction. After a while, they came to a collapsed building and stopped at a certain place. "This seems to be Mayfair's room?" Dr. Gores looked at Luocio with a strange expression. They saw that Boss Luo directly climbed in at this time and lifted the bedboard. It seemed that he was looking for something under the bed. Girth and Tina couldn't help stepping forward because they were too angry. There was a box the size of a washbasin under the bed. They opened the box and looked at the things inside. "What's this?" Dr. Gores was startled. "A pile of stones?" Dr. Gores subconsciously picked up one of the stones and looked at it carefully. He found that there was nothing special about these stones. If it was an item that was already in his possession, he would definitely get a notification from the chessboard. Even if it was a rusty sword, there would at least be a message like "rusty sword, almost no attack power." These stones look like a big broken slate. Ms. Maid thought for a while and said, "What are the words engraved on it? Is it the Elven language?" "You'll know after studying it," Boss Luo said casually and then put away the box. Dr. Gores shook his head. Boss Luo's mysterious appearance confirmed his guess that Boss Luo might have some special relationship with the chessboard. But it wasn't the right time to investigate. Now, the hope of clearing the level was all on Boss Luo. They had to rely on Boss Luo for food, so they had to be careful. It was a pity that the gem that could absorb damage had been used when he was disguised as an oracle by Malik. Otherwise, if he could bring out the chessboard, after clearing the level, it would be a rare treasure. And the invisibility scroll. Dr. Gores suddenly realized that he had been busy for a long time, but in the end, he didn't seem to get anything. But didn't he already have those things in his hands? "Doctor, what are you thinking about?" Tina asked curiously when she saw Dr. Gores was silent. Dr. Gores had an idea and said casually, "Nothing, just, there's something I don't understand." "What is it?" Dr. Gores shrugged and said, "I just don't understand why Malik placed a coffin made of luminous stone in his room." Boss Luo suddenly said, "After people die, they are placed in the coffin. Maybe for Mr. Malik, death means separation from this world." Dr. Gores and Tina were stunned. Luoqiu smiled and said, "Of course, there's also such a saying, death is the path to another world. That can only be a place like the underworld." Dr. Gores said casually, "That guy killed so many of his companions, he can't buy a ticket to heaven, right?" "That's unknown." Boss Luo smiled casually and said, "Let's go, the connection with the master has been restored." "Really?" Gores and Tina showed a hint of joy at the same time, as if the sky had finally cleared up. "There's one more thing," Boss Luo said casually. "Mr. Varley outside has now become Ms. Gong Lina's servant and has also joined the world of chessboard." "What?" Dr. Gores was stunned and said incredulously, "Gong Lina actually got last chance." New dark clouds seemed to appear in the clear sky. Dr. Gores was silent at once. "Mr. Gores seems to have a deep understanding of chessboard," Boss Luo said casually. "You guessed what happened so quickly." Dr. Gores smiled embarrassedly. "But he secretly cursed that guy, Nelson. Why didn't he contact me? How long has it been since he went to make supper?" Now, he couldn't clear the dungeon quickly. Initially, Garth planned to challenge the Guardian since he had acquired Promer's blade. It wouldn't be a problem anymore. He just wanted to leave the world of chessboard as soon as possible. But now Mr. Varley had entered the world of chessboard as a servant. If he didn't kill Mr. Varley here, he still had a chance to leave the world of chessboard. That was not a fun thing to do. But what kind of reason would make the captain take the initiative to deal with Miss Gong Lina's two servants? Right at this moment, a figure stealthily appeared in front of these people. Tina rushed out in a flash. After a short while, she carried a person and walked back. The person carried back by Miss Maid was surprisingly Nan Xiaonan, who had barely fought monsters to level up. You seem to be one of Nelson's kitchen helpers?" Dr. Gores couldn't help but frown. "Why are you here?" We meet again, everyone." Nan Xiaonan showed a rather ugly smile at this time. She wanted to say that they met again, Mr. Luo. But this was tantamount to revealing that she and Mr. Luo had known each other for a long time. Before figuring out the real reason why Mr. Luo came to Varley's castle, it was better to keep this secret for the time being. "You are the butler's servant," Tina said indifferently at this time. "Did Mr. Butler ask you to snipe us to avenge Mr. Varley?" Nan Xiaonan quickly shook her head at this time and said, "I don't know anything. I just followed the order to form an alliance with Mr. Cardil, and then I was brought here. But he thought I was useless, so he left me aside. It seems that this Mr. Cardil is already dead?" Her level is very low, and she doesn't even have a profession. She is just a villager. Tina said indifferently at this time. At present, she is just a useless model. She is not a threat. Gores thought for a while and said, Lisa and I have a good relationship. Since you are his servant, I don't intend to embarrass you. Why don't you tell Lisa to take the initiative to communicate with our masters and form an alliance with us? Tell Lisa that we have obtained the important item to defeat the keeper. He will know how to choose. In fact, I came for this matter. Nan Xiaonan said seriously at this time, Mr. Butler has said that he hopes I can join your team here. Oh! Gores turned his eyes and immediately nodded. That's right. Lisa just has a bad memory, but it's not that he can't understand the situation. Such a choice is also expected. Dr. Gores was so eager to facilitate this alliance. It was just to pull the butler of the castle into his camp. There was no reason for him to be the only traitor. If he had to die, he would die together. At this time, the butler left his original position expressionlessly. At this time, all the function cards in his preparation area had been directly transferred to Miss Maid's function card preparation area. Then, there's nothing for me to do. The butler did not seem to be alarmed by the encounter of the owner of the castle. He still looked tired with a pair of dark circles under his eyes and said stiffly, I'll go and see how the food is prepared. After all, Narsen has been gone for a long time. Something might have happened. The ghoul bodyguards curled up in a corner and watched the butler leave. Suddenly, they said in unison, Mr. Lisa, wait for us, we will go with you. They did not want to stay in this place anymore. Even the owner of the castle was trapped in this strange chessboard. They did not want to know what terrible things would happen next. Miss Gong Lina picked up the dice for throwing action points indifferently and looked at Miss Maid with a chuckle. I didn't expect that it would become a decisive battle between the two of us in the end. I don't intend to throw action points anymore. I'll wait for your arrival here. The place where the last guardian is called is where my servants are now in the king's city. As she spoke, Miss Gong Lina threw the dice in her hand at Miss Maid. She clearly saw that Miss Maid had just thrown a glove for Black Hound and Black Dragon to pick it up and did not have time to put on a new glove. She either caught it or hurriedly avoided it. In any case, she was at a disadvantage. A black shadow appeared like a flash of lightning and caught the dice with its mouth. It turned out to be Black Hound and Black Dragon. It was really worth the training of picking up the glove. Black Dragon jumped from a distance and steadily held the dice in its mouth. At this time, it wagged its tail and came to the front of Miss Maid, raising its head high. You seem to be called Black Dragon, right? Miss Maid smiled slightly, put on a new glove calmly, and touched Black Hound's head. Good Black Dragon, I'll give you something to eat later. Its tail wagged more vigorously. Finally, there will be something to eat. ######### PS1. Thank a fleeting dream without a trace for the tip. Serve tea to the capitalist boss. PS2. 0 to 1. PS3. Today is not the same as usual. I want to rest. Chapter 1830. The streets of King's City, which were supposed to be bustling, were filled with horrified screams one after another. Because not long ago, a crazy teenager suddenly appeared on the street. He killed people on the street. So far, more than a dozen people had died in the hands of this teenager. Guards! Haven't the guards come yet? Save me! Guards! A peddler was screaming for help in horror. In the next second, the peddler's throat was crushed and blood splashed out. The scene was extremely bloody. After the teenager who was killing indiscriminately threw away the peddler's body, his pair of blood-red eyes continued to look for the next target. However, the pedestrians on the long street and the businessmen in the shops along the street had already fled out of fear. This part of the street had become messy and dead silent at this time. Suddenly, a palm was placed on the shoulder of the teenager who killed indiscriminately. That's enough. When are you going to stop being crazy? Tang Tianlin stared blankly at the strange teenager who was covered with blood in front of him. This teenager was Mr. Varley, who came to the world of chessboard as a servant. Tang Tianlin was very surprised after receiving the information from Gong Lina. What happened to chessboard outside? As the owner of the castle, Mr. Varley was forced to become Gong Lina's servant? After Varley arrived, he killed indiscriminately on the streets of King City to vent his anger. Tang Tianlin didn't intend to stop him. He just watched in a daze. Although the scene was extremely bloody, in Tang Tianlin's view, it was just a game world in chessboard. No one cared how many people died in the game. No one cared who a gamer killed in the game and how many people he killed in the game. The reason why Tang Tianlin stopped Mr. Varley now was to calm him down. Otherwise, they couldn't communicate at all. Present, the only source of information about the outside world that Tang Tianlin could find was Miss Gong Lina. He didn't completely trust Gong Lina. Varley, who had just arrived, obviously knew more about the outside world. He even knew what Tang Tianlin really wanted to investigate. It was about perfect person and a perfect person cells. Just like that, Wally was pulled into the chessboard world and even appeared in front of him as a member of the same faction. It was a great opportunity that he couldn't miss. Who do you think you are? How dare you lecture me? Mr. Wally. Young Wally stared at Tang Tianlin murderously. Do you think that you are qualified to talk to me now that I am a servant? Although Tang Tianlin did not know why Mr. Varley, who was tall and handsome with a mustache, suddenly turned into a teenager, Tang Tianlin quickly accepted this incredible setting. It was already incredible enough to throw himself into the chessboard world, wasn't it? It's not up to me to decide whether I'm qualified or not. Tang Tianlin said indifferently, now you and I are both Miss Gong Lina's servants. No matter what we do, we have to follow her orders. Now you are killing indiscriminately in the royal capital. Aren't you afraid of causing trouble for Miss Gong Lina? Now you have attracted the attention of the guards in the royal capital. I came here earlier than you. There are many powerful guys hiding in the royal capital. Young Wally snorted coldly. I know more about the powerful professionals in the royal capital than you do. Don't worry, it's not the first time I've come here. Come with me. After that, young Wally left the long street without saying a word. Tang Tianlin quickly followed. He had already learned that because of Wally's indiscriminate killing here, a large number of royal guards had arrived. In order to avoid trouble, he stopped young Wally's indiscriminate killing. At this time, following young Wally, Tang Tianlin found that young Wally seemed to be very familiar with the layout of the streets here. After a while, they came to a manor in the city. On the way, young Wally even threw away his blood-stained clothes directly. Now he looked like a rich young master who didn't know much about the world. Where is this place? Tang Tianlin looked at the manor in front of him and couldn't help but frown. Wait for me here, don't go away. Young Wally said indifferently, I'll go in to increase my strength and will come out soon. It won't take long. Mr. Tang was very obedient and didn't go away. Sure enough, young Wally came out of the mysterious manor again, and he even changed into a new set of clothes. Tang Tianlin frowned subconsciously. It had only been a short time since they last met, but the pressure from young Wally was much stronger than before. Normally, young Wally, who had just arrived at chessboard, as a servant should be as weak as a blank slate. At this time, young Wally tidied up his sleeves and said at the same time, If you want me to start from scratch like you, how much time will I waste? Your profession should be Death Walker, right? How do you know? Tang Tianlin couldn't help but be surprised. Of course, this might be what Gong Lina said, after all, they were siblings. Humph. Young Wally snorted coldly. Your servant card has been destroyed once, and then it appeared again. Gong Lina has stayed in the same place for so long, if I can't guess what card she has in her hand, then I have been holding this chessboard for so long, wouldn't it be a waste? Tang Tianlin was silent. Young Wally said indifferently at this time, but you can rest assured that I won't do anything to you. I will even find a way to help you win this game. Only in this way can you and I leave this world." "What do you mean by that?" Tang Tianlin couldn't help but frown again. Young Wally sneered. "It seems that you still have a lot of things that you don't know. It doesn't matter, before they come, I will tell you, lest you don't know anything and ruin my plan. Today is not a perfect day. In addition, I remind you, from now on, no matter what Gong Lina says to you in private, you'd better have a skeptical attitude. That woman is more vicious than anyone else." Tang Tianlin believed that intuition. Miss Maid's team of 4 servants was moving quickly at this time, toward the middle of the chessboard, where the king's city was located. Since Miss Gong Lina had given up on the action roll point, only Miss Maid's servant team was moving continuously. In fact, it wouldn't take long because her servant team had stayed in the roaring forest for a long time, so they had accumulated a lot of action points. "Speaking of which, you don't seem to worry about your brother at all," Miss Maid suddenly said faintly. "He came to the chessboard. Maybe he will encounter some danger? No matter how dangerous it is not as dangerous as the punishment roulette," Miss Gong Lina said with a chuckle. "Besides, even as a servant, my naughty brother will not be so easy to be bullied. But you? What's wrong with me?" Miss Maid asked curiously. Miss Gong Lina narrowed her eyes. "I am curious about your origin. To be honest, I have always appreciated women like you. Among so many women I have met in my life, you are the rare type that can be unforgettable just by looking at you." "So?" Miss Maid threw the dice casually. The points were good. This time it was 5 action points. If she did it a few more times, they would arrive at the king's city. "I am just curious," Miss Gong Lina said casually. "What kind of man can make such an outstanding woman like you willing to accompany him? It's a pity that the time we met was too short. Before we could get to know each other, Wally had already started the game. If possible, I really hope that your follower is actually under my command." "Miss Gong Lina, right?" Miss Maid suddenly said expressionlessly. "Is there a way to forcibly stop this chessboard?" Miss Maid didn't know why she suddenly asked such a question. She seemed to be caught off guard and said, "Forcibly stop? Once the chessboard game starts, it can't be stopped. Not only the servants inside can't stop it, but also the masters can't stop it. Indeed, Narsen and Lisa temporarily left, and Tiff is now in a coma, but it is only because they don't need to roll the dice. In fact, they can't leave the chessboard too far. Once they are exhausted, they will be forced to return. Of course, the fight between masters is also forbidden, unless this chessboard can be destroyed. However, Wally has used many methods, but he can't destroy this chessboard at all. It is strange." "What a pity," Miss Maid said indifferently. "What's a pity?" Miss Gong Lina said with a smile. "Nothing." Miss Maid smiled and continued to roll the dice. "It's just that the game is not over yet. It seems that Black Dragon has to wait for a while before it can eat." Black Hound suddenly raised its head and immediately became sad. "So hungry." Miss Gong Lina smiled and said, "Perhaps it will be over soon. After all, only you and I are left, right?" Miss Maid rolled the dice again. Tiny roots quickly grew from the floor. Very quickly, the rapidly growing roots had already arrived in front of a large door. It was the door of the banquet hall. But at this moment, when the roots were about to penetrate deep into the door, a black flame suddenly ignited in the cracks of the floor. The roots at least touched a little bit, and they were instantly burned to ashes. They seemed to have encountered something terrible. They stopped growing and even retreated a little bit, and then moved to another place again. A chessboard. During the journey, the followers seldom talked, or they didn't have time to talk about anything in detail. After all, the movement in the world of chessboard was a direct regional movement. The scenery flew past in front of them, passing through mountains and rivers. Perhaps they had crossed a distance of thousands of kilometers. Of course, every time they stopped, there would be some time to rest. Mr. Sneeve had returned to the team. He was forcibly recalled when he began to move. After returning to the team, Sneeve didn't speak and looked very gloomy. As for Dr. Gores and Tina, they obviously didn't belong to the same group as Mr. Sneeve. And the mysterious Mr. Luo. Nan Xiaonan always felt that she had joined a team that was difficult to get along with. It was better to hold on to Mr. Luo's thigh, so that the sense of security would be higher. It was another short rest period between regional movements. The current location seemed to be a plain, but the towns they passed through had become more and more crowded. 2 more times, we should almost reach the King's City. Boss Luo suddenly said at this time, Mr. Gores, you said that the place to summon the gatekeeper is in the King's City. What should we do? Dr. Gores suddenly became energetic at this time. He thought for a while and said, in fact, before summoning the gatekeeper, we have to do one thing, which is to put the country into an unprecedented crisis. Nan Xiaonan raised her eyebrows. Because the gatekeeper is actually the guardian of the country. Dr. Gores said slowly, only when the country is in the most critical moment, the royal family will make up their mind to summon the gatekeeper. Boss Luo nodded. So, what did you do to put the country into an unprecedented crisis? There are many ways, Dr. Gores said casually. In fact, in order to pass the time, Mr. Varley has tried almost everything in the past, but the most common method is to catch the king directly and then threaten him. I heard that the time of this chessboard game is always flowing. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but ask curiously at this time. The servant outside catches the king again and again, and he agrees again and again. Isn't it too childish? Of course, it seems that ordinary threats won't work. Dr. Gores said, after all, every time the gatekeeper is summoned, the life of a direct royal family member has to be sacrificed. But in fact, it's that simple. How to say it? It seems that the royal family has been used to being bullied since ancient times, so every king has a tradition of crazy reproduction in case of emergency. In other words? Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth. What kind of weird royal family is this? That is to say, when we call the king, every king will basically agree. Dr. Gores shrugged and said, for the king, the act of summoning the gatekeeper is like throwing some money to send away beggars. Anyway, every king has dozens of sons and dozens of princesses, and they don't care about sacrifice. It seems that every king of the royal family is in good health? Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but open her mouth. Anyway, there are quite a lot of concubines. Dr. Gores shrugged. Moreover, every time I will leave some remedies to restore energy. Now counting the time, it's been almost 60 years since the last clearance, right? I don't know how many children have been born now. At this time, a team of cars slowly passed by. Hey, have you heard? Her Royal Highness is preparing to choose a son-in-law. She is going to hold a martial arts competition. Only the bravest person in the kingdom can be the husband of Her Royal Highness. That's of course. His Majesty only has one descendant, Her Royal Highness. Who doesn't know that the king cherishes Her Royal Highness the most? So, whoever becomes the husband of the princess is likely to take over the throne in the future. Naturally, only the bravest person in the kingdom has this qualification. Speaking of which, I'm a little excited. I think that person may be me. The team gradually went away. Chapter 1831. They called it the Kingdom Elnis. It was the only great country that occupied the entire continent. Ever since this generation's king ascended the throne, he had already destroyed the surrounding countries in a short 10 years, completing a great unification. A kingdom, it should have long become an empire. But until now, Elnis had always called itself a kingdom. It was said that this was the king's insistence. This was the most powerful man in the world of chessboard. Now, as long as one became the bravest talent in the country, he would be able to gain the king's appreciation and become the husband of the only princess of the kingdom. More likely, he would inherit the throne of the kingdom. Once the news came out, countless heroes and geniuses within the kingdom flocked to it. The originally bustling capital of the kingdom instantly became very crowded. Businesses from all walks of life were abnormally popular. Vitality plus 3 great hammer, only 30 silver. Do you want 30 silver? Do you want it? Take care tonight. Field battle tent is on sale for 1 gold. Mosquito repellent, insect repellent, no need to worry about work. I'll give you a 5-star home. Come and see, come and buy. This is a green onion disguised as a green onion. Even if it's just a green onion, it's still a powerful green onion. It has a +1 charm effect to enemies. Hero, do you want one? No, thank you. Boss Luo declined the vendor's recommendation. Just like the geniuses from all over the country on the street, Boss Luo also fell into the marketing hell. Of course, he found it interesting at first, but he gradually got used to it. After walking out of the street with great difficulty, Dr. Gores, whose clothes were already messed up by the vendors, quickly suggested, "We need to quickly find a hotel. Otherwise, we might have to sleep under the bridge tonight." They had already heard that there was only one princess in Elnis. This meant that the usual method of directly charging into the palace and asking the king to sacrifice a prince or princess to summon a guardian would be very difficult to succeed. They had to think of another plan. It was said that the king treasured his only heir a lot. Those who guarded the princess were the most powerful humans in Elnis. A human sword saint, 2 gold badge starlight mages, and a giant dragon. Because of this information, Dr. Gores finally understood why this generation's king only had one heir. Every man who dares to ride a dragon is a true warrior. Dr. Gores sighed and said, "The dragons in this world are very loyal to love, and they will not allow the company of a traitor. Since this king has married the princess of the dragon race, he should not expect to be able to have children with other women." The current situation was that the princess of the kingdom was not only the sole heir of the royal family, but she also had half the blood of the dragon royal family. If they wanted to deal with the princess, they would definitely attract the hostility of the royal family and the dragon clan. As for the method of sacrificing the princess, it would probably be a situation where they would fight to the death. They couldn't find a hotel, but they found a tea house and squeezed in front of a small round table. Dr. Gores held the teacup with both hands, clamped his legs, and slowly said, "In the game we, as servants, get the power of the profession, but there is also a limit. And this limit is basically the same as the strongest of the native races in this world. Now, the princess has a sword saint and 2 gold badge starlight mages, who are known as the most powerful group of humans. It's not that I want to demoralize myself, but these guards around the princess, I'm afraid their strength is about the same as yours." These words were said while looking at Boss Luo. "As for the dragon clan, let's not talk about the dragon clan." Dr. Gores sighed, "This is troublesome. In the past, there has never been a dragon clan in our remaining games." Mr. Varley used to be curious, so he drove his servant to the dragon's territory in the game. That time, his servant almost died. Since then, whenever the game starts, Mr. Varley will not take the initiative to trigger any plot about the dragon clan. This time, how did it become like this? About this, I seem to have heard something. Nan Xiaonan came back with a big bag of trophies at this time. She squeezed into this crowded table, shamelessly sandwiched between Tina and Boss Luo, and said mysteriously, "I know what happened." "Say it," Dr. Gores urged. He didn't care how the other party heard it, the key was that she already heard it. "This starts from the battle for the throne of the previous generation," Nan Xiaonan quickly said at this time, "because the royal family has always had a lot of children. The battle for the throne was also extremely tragic. The king of this generation was the most powerless group at the beginning, and he was even persecuted and almost died. So he swore that he must take revenge. Perhaps this man was lucky. He actually met the injured dragon princess in the midst of his misfortune. Wait! Dr. Gores couldn't help but frown. Is it because this abject prince rescued the dragon princess, then after a great adventure, he finally defeated all the heirs to the throne one by one, and then smoothly ascended to the throne? Is it so old-fashioned? It's so old-fashioned. Nan Xiaonan shrugged. The story of the king and the dragon princess has always been circulating, but the most popular version is that this abject king was born with the body of the divine Yang, and the dragon princess was born with the body of extreme Yin. As long as the bloodline of the kingdom can save the dragon princess's life. This sense of déjà vu of the son of the dimension. Dr. Gores smiled bitterly. The kingdom with the dragon clan's support behind it, let alone the crisis of the kingdom's destruction, I'm afraid that it will be a problem for them to walk in front of the king. This script is not right. How did this royal family suddenly turn over a new leaf? The previous kings were very easy to talk to, and they were very easy to get along with. How did it change at this time? Not only did they work hard for the kingdom, but they also tried to unify the kingdom. This is a nightmare beginning? Doctor, don't blame yourself so much. The maid comforted him. The world of the chessboard can deduce itself, but we have always been used to it, so we neglected to collect information about the world of the chessboard. In fact, it's not too late to find out. At least we didn't have to directly break into the palace to find out. Perhaps we are already in danger now. With the maid's comfort, Dr. Gore's mood suddenly became better. But it wasn't much better because he was still troubled about how to make the kingdom of Elnis fall into a crisis of destruction. How about we poison it? Dr. Gores said gloomily at this time. Although the average strength of this world is very high, the medical methods are very different from our original world. I just need to configure a few highly contagious viruses to spread. As soon as the doctor finished his words, something happened that shocked everyone. Dr. Gore's body suddenly twitched, his mouth was foaming, and he directly fell to the ground. It seemed that he couldn't hold on any longer and was about to die. However, this sudden attack soon stopped. Dr. Girth trembled as he got up. He quickly crushed a bottle of recovery potion and drank it. He said with a horrified look on his face, "My HP was only left with a little bit just now." Even Sneeve, who was indifferent to everything around him, frowned subconsciously at this time. Any behavior that seriously damages the ecosystem of the continent will be severely punished. This was the first warning. The message from the chessboard appeared in everyone's mind at the same time, and the tone was unexpectedly serious. It didn't have the usual calm and a little playful style. This is the first time. Dr. Gore's face was pale at this time. Really? This is the first time I encountered this kind of situation, where the chessboard will take the initiative to punish. Luochio thought for a while and said, "It seems that any means of wantonly killing people to make Elnis fall into a crisis of national destruction has been banned. What's the point of this?" Dr. Gores gritted his teeth. "Do we need to form another force to overthrow the rule of the kingdom? How much time do we have to waste?" "Maybe not." Nan Xiaonan suddenly said at this time, "Don't you think that this matter of the kingdom's princess choosing a husband is very coincidental? Since it's a game, then there should be a correct way to clear every level. This tournament didn't come early or late, but it just happened to start when we came to the capital. Maybe this is a hint." "You mean?" Gores frowned, "win the championship, marry the princess, become the king, and then push the princess to sacrifice to summon the guardian of the kingdom?" Nan Xiaonan shrugged and said, "Of course, if you have feelings for the princess and are willing to spend the rest of your life with her, it's not a problem to push her to sacrifice when she is about to die of old age. I'm quite interested in this world, and it doesn't matter if I study it here for a few decades." She really didn't care. Which explorers who walked in the dimensional crevice didn't want to study a new subworld after discovering it? Not to mention a few decades, it was normal for them to casually study for hundreds of years. If they encountered a suitable subworld, it was common to directly develop a subworld civilization from nothing to the peak. Forget about spending the rest of your life. Dr. Gores shook his head. But this is not a bad idea. As he said, Dr. Gores directly looked at the temporary leader of the servant team. If there was anyone who could win the championship and marry the princess, it was obviously the leader of the servant team. Me? Boss Luo shook his head at this time. I'm not going to participate. In addition, from now on, I may have to be separated from everyone for a while. What did you say? Dr. Gores stood up at once. Everyone's eyes could not help but look at Luochio. Boss Luo said slowly at this time, I have communicated with my master. Now we are in the area of the King's City. From here we can move freely in this area. In fact, she will also give up the action roll point, only keeping the life reduction roll point and the function card draw. So, you still have to pay attention to your own life value. Wait, Mr. Luo, what are you going to do? Nan Xiaonan suddenly startled and blurted out, Are you going to find? But before she finished speaking, the boss Luo in front of her had disappeared. She even touched nothing. I knew it. Dr. Gores said at this time, This guy must have more than one invisibility scroll. Then, I will act on my own. Nan Xiaonan said quickly at this time, Anyway, I'm Mr. Lisa's follower, and I joined later. I think you don't trust me too much. Instead of acting with reluctance here, I'd better take the initiative to go away. With this, Nan Xiaonan suddenly jumped down from the second floor of the tea house without waiting for anyone's response. She quickly blended into the crowd and disappeared. Dr. Gores, Tina, and even Sneeve looked at each other. The doctor said with a dignified look, Gather under the overpass just now. Go! They scattered and ran away in an instant. At the same time, the staff who saw this scene suddenly screamed in exasperation, Eat and dash! Mr. Luo suddenly left like this, I'm afraid he's looking for the slate fragments. Nan Xiaonan was standing in front of a stall. She was casually flipping through the things on the stall. She was deep in thought. But that might not be the case. After all, he did say that he could work with me to find the fragments of the slate. Based on his character, since he said something, he shouldn't go back on his words. What if he goes back on his words and hides? But why did they have to split up? Was it because they wanted to avoid Garth and the others so that they could move more conveniently? Then, they privately asked me to search for the slate fragments together? Fortunately, I was quick-witted and understood this layer of meaning in time, otherwise I would have missed the opportunity. Hey miss, you've turned my things over and over again, and they're almost rotten. Do you still want to buy them? The stall owner's voice was heard. Nan Xiaonan wrinkled her nose and was about to make trouble. Unexpectedly, at this time, suddenly a hand quietly stretched out and grabbed Nan Xiaonan's wrist. Mr. Luo, I didn't guess wrong. You really came to find. Hey, why are you here? Nan Xiaonan's expression of joy suddenly sank. Then she heard a low voice. This is not the place to talk, come with me first. What do you mean by not the place to talk? I'll go with you. Nan Xiaonan said angrily at this time. If you have the time to go somewhere else, you've already finished talking, okay? What if there's an accident on the way? What if you fall into a pit and die? I won't know anything. Can't you talk here? Even if they hear you, they won't understand, okay? Tang Tianlin. At this time, the person who quietly appeared was Tang Tianlin, whom Nan Xiaonan hadn't seen for a long time. At the beginning, he was her companion. Tang Tianlin, who was covered in a long robe and even his head was covered, heard this and could only be silent for a moment. Okay then, let's talk while walking. Nan Xiaonan rolled her eyes and then threw the things in her hand. I'm not buying any more. Hashtag, 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 hashtag. Chapter 1832. So, you haven't gotten any information about the perfect man from Wally? In the crowd, Nan Xiaonan rolled her eyes at Tang Tianlin, expressing that he still had the nerve to come to her. They traveled all the way from Kelowna to the land of Britain, and finally fell into the chessboard game in the castle. It had been a long time, and Tang Tianlin was quite familiar with Nan Xiaonan's temperament, but he was still a little irritated. I don't know when you can recover your memory. Tang Tianlin sighed. What's wrong? Nan Xiaonan said indifferently, I've recovered my past memories. Do you think I'll treat you better? Do you think I used to be your girlfriend? She was actually a little afraid of this. After all, she relied on Nan Xiaonan's body. Although it was not a choice, who would want to drive a second-hand car? You and I are just teacher's students, and we work on the same research project. Tang Tianlin said indifferently. It's just that you are an orphan since you were a child, and it was teacher who adopted and trained you. Now teacher was killed, and his lifelong research results were stolen, but you have an indifferent expression. If you were me, how would you feel? Nan Xiaonan shook her head. She didn't feel anything. What Tang Tianlin said was not a tragedy. She had seen a lot more miserable things than this when she was in the void. Don't talk about this nonsense. Nan Xiaonan waved her hand at this time. You are now in the same team as Wally. Aren't you afraid of being discovered if you come to contact me in private? Your master doesn't have any objection? Tang Tianlin said, Gong Lina has stopped the operation long ago. She just asked me to wait in the king's city. So far, she hasn't given any instructions. In fact, it's the 5th day I've been in the king's city, and I've been wandering here these days. The time in the chessboard world is different from the time outside. Nan Xiaonan suddenly said, We've been here for so long, but it's just past midnight outside. I know. Tang Tianlin nodded and immediately said, I guessed it. This chessboard is very magical. Instead of saying that the time here is different from the time outside, it would be better to say that the information received by our brain is much faster than the information received by the outside world. You know about the idea of the brain in a vat, right? The principle here should be similar. If you think about it this way, you're not wrong in a way. Nan Xiaonan suddenly muttered. What did you say? Nan Xiaonan shook her head and said, Nothing. So you found me just to tell me this? Tang Tianlin said, I don't know what Wally is planning these days, but I always feel that he is ready and waiting for you to come. I just want to remind you that you'd better be careful. Nan Xiaonan said, Now there's only the battle between the two masters left. That is to say, we can't avoid it. Once we die in the chessboard, it means real death. Tang Tianlin, you remind me like this. Aren't you afraid that I'll stab you in the back? You won't. Tang Tianlin shook his head and looked at the thin, short-haired woman in front of him with shining eyes. He said in a deep voice, The Nan Xiaonan I know will not do such a thing. You. Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth and asked very seriously, Before I lost my memory, I was sure that you and I were just in the same school. There were no other dramatic things. For example, because the research project was too boring, science students once had friendly exchanges to solve physiological problems? Tang Tianlin shook his head. Then I'm relieved. Nan Xiaonan breathed a sigh of relief. It would be best if she was the original one. She didn't integrate many memory fragments of the real Nan Xiaonan, and there was none in this aspect. She couldn't evaluate whether she was the original or not. She couldn't break it open and study it by herself, right? Besides, that thing would fall off accidentally. It was still the same problem. She didn't want to drive a second-hand car. Otherwise, if she triggered a plot in the future where she could recommend herself to serve Mr. Luo, wouldn't this second-hand car have no chance at all? If I want to marry, I will only marry a real powerful person. If not, I will be single for the rest of my life. By the way, there's one more thing, Tang Tianlin suddenly said. Wally seems to plan to participate in this competition. Tang Tianlin paused. I speculate that Gong Lina will soon give me an order to participate in this competition. I saw Wally walk into a manor and come out. After that, his strength improved a lot. He has been making similar improvements these days. If you meet him, you'd better not confront him head-on. He is the husband chosen by the kingdom's princess. Why should I participate in the competition? Nan Xiaonan said angrily. This competition doesn't stipulate that women can't participate. Tang Tianlin frowned and said, the number of women who came to sign up for the competition is not small. This princess is gay? Nan Xiaonan was surprised. Even so, the king won't agree, right? This world doesn't stipulate that same-sex couples can't marry. Tang Tianlin shrugged and said, anyway, women can participate. I'm not interested. Nan Xiaonan shook her head. She just wanted to find the slate fragments as soon as possible and control chessboard from the source. It was better to start than to clear the game and take away a few items. This time, Tang Tianlin's purpose was to meet Nan Xiaonan and talk about the things that happened during this period of time. He couldn't stay in contact with Nan Xiaonan for too long, in case Gong Lina found out. This meeting is quite dangerous. Tang Tianlin said quickly, take this. This is the key to the hotel. I secretly stayed in a room for a long time. I go there every day to write down my whereabouts and new information. During the time in King City, let's contact each other in this way. After throwing down the key, he quickly blended into the crowd. Nan Xiaonan looked at the key in her hand, blinked her eyes and chuckled. It seems that I don't need to sleep under the overpass tonight. Just like wandering around other subworlds, the fastest way to learn about a subworld was to enter its bustling city. For a city with a long history like the King's City of Elnis, there were a lot of historical traces. Of course, Araya of 0361 was beside him now, so it was more convenient to ask her. Besides, she had already given him the world data. However, Boss Luo still liked to experience it himself. Besides, the subworld of 0361 had been invaded for a long time and had been modified a lot. Araya of 0361 had been sleeping in the home of the elves during this time, and the data update had stopped long ago. You have already left the home of the elves. Are you okay? Luochio looked at the white-clothed girl who was following him expressionlessly. Yes. As long as you don't use the remaining power of the origin, this level of disguise can be maintained for a standard 100 years. The street was bustling with people coming and going. Luochio smiled and said, you once projected that the two goddesses created the world in this reboot and brought the seeds of civilization. Have you ever tried like this, personally visiting the city of the civilization you created? No need. All data can be accurately recorded. Maybe you should try. Boss Luo walked behind Araya and pressed her shoulders. He lowered his head and whispered in her ear, look, although the people on the street were created by you and their fates were written by you. But now, the one who controls their fates is no longer you, but the chessboard. Look at them. Their emotions are no longer the evolution of the data in your eyes. Can you tell me how you feel now? Unable to do so. Wrong data evolution should be corrected in time. How do you know that this is a wrong evolution? Boss Luo smiled and said, you incubate one civilization after another in each subworld. The purpose is to incubate a perfect world, but you never know what kind of incubation route is correct. If that's the case, how can you determine that a civilization that has not been incubated by you must be wrong? Silence. Boss Luo patted Araya's head and said, if it was silent, it wouldn't be silent. Araya looked up in confusion and asked, a question. Is there any special meaning to the intimate behavior of the restricted authority? No special meaning. Boss Luo said casually, it's just a way of expression, a subconscious behavior. Araya thought for a moment and said, a speculation. The restricted authority prefers girls with the body and appearance of number 0361 Araya. Generally speaking. Boss Luo was invulnerable. He smiled and said, basically, we all like cute girls like you. You should know the preference of humans. After all, the data doesn't lie. I'm sure. Boss Luo smiled and said, let's not talk about this. Have you tried dressing up? Araya shook his head. Boss Luo held the girl's hand and said, "Come, think of yourself as a girl of this age. Let's tour the king's capital." Meaning unknown. Just think of it as accompanying me. Luoqiu smiled and said, "I have a sister who is about the same age as you. Looking at you is like looking at her." Question: which sub-administrator is this? She's not. Boss Luo said suddenly, but recently I remembered something. She's not you, but you should be created based on her. For the first time, the white-clothed Alea revealed a confused expression. She looked adorable. Boss Luo looked at him and put his finger in front of his lips, making a silent gesture. "Do as I say. If you don't understand, extract the girl's data." Araya said calmly, "A question. What kind of girl model do you want?" "Up to you." "Understood. Randomly selected." The expression on the white-clothed girl's face gradually became richer and richer. Even her voice, which was connected to her voice, was filled with countless emotional fluctuations. She hugged Boss Luo's arm and looked up with a bright smile. "Araya likes Big Brother the most. I want to eat lollipops." "Let's change it?" Understood. Inside the huge palace wall, there was a sense of desolation in the silence. It came from the heavily armed palace guards. They knew that the kingdom must be heavily guarded, but they didn't expect it to be this strict. It was like a huge military camp. Even in the great hall of the throne, there were a large number of soldiers standing guard. They were hidden in the shadows, and the king was also under their gaze. This was the king of Elnis, King Amos. A few important ministers of the kingdom were below the throne with their heads lowered. The man on the throne was looking at them with his hands on his cheeks. It had been a long time. Even when the ministers' foreheads were gradually covered in cold sweat, the king still did not speak. "Yesterday I had a dream." He spoke. The king of Elnis, King Amos, the most powerful man on the continent. "Your Majesty, what kind of dream was it?" Under the gaze of his colleagues, a minister walked out and asked respectfully. "I dreamed that I was imprisoned in a place." King Amos said calmly, "No matter how I resisted, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't leave this place. In the end, I chose to end my life in despair." The ministers were shocked. They lowered their heads and didn't dare to speak. The king's dream was not a good sign. Such a dream, even the best dream decoder wouldn't be able to decipher it. "Do you think this dream is good or bad?" King Amos asked calmly. The ministers immediately looked at each other awkwardly. At this time, not only their foreheads, but their inner robes were also beginning to be soaked with sweat. "This was a good dream," King Amos said, "because it let me know one thing, the fact that I've been imprisoned." The ministers looked at each other, but they couldn't understand King Amos's thoughts. "It's just a joke." King Amos suddenly chuckled. "Your lives are too depressing. I'm just joking with you. Don't mind it. The reason I called you here today is to talk about the upcoming competition." King Yamos stood up from his throne and walked down step by step. "So, my ministers, who will report to me on the preparations for the tournament, as well as the discovery of any good talents?" "Your Majesty, so far." Thus, a minister hurriedly began to report. The main hall was still a little dark, and in those dark shadows, there was no telling how many soldiers were hidden, armed to the teeth. The palace had always been like this, ever since King Amos took over the throne. ######### PS 1/1. Chapter 1833. In front of the shabby Kalak's weapon shop, a young man in luxurious clothes walked in. His weapons were also luxurious, and they were embedded with all kinds of gems. As long as one had the power of a profession, they would be able to sense the terrifying power contained within these gems. Therefore, the two customers who just walked out of Balak's weapon shop changed their expressions when they saw this young man, and they immediately took a detour. At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in this young man's ears. "Finally found you, Mr. Varley." It was Tang Tianlin, and the young man in front of him was the owner of the castle, Vampire Varley. Young Varley wasn't too surprised to see Tang Tianlin here. Why are you here? I just happened to see you, Tang Tianlin said calmly. You want to go in to buy weapons? Tang Tianlin looked at young Varley's equipment and said, Is this necessary? Young Varley said calmly, Don't be fooled by this weapon shop. The craftsman who ran this shop may be the best in the entire chessboard world. Lock? Tang Tianlin looked at the name of the weapon shop and said subconsciously. Young Varley said, Since you are here, you can go in with me if you are interested. Maybe you can find a weapon suitable for you. Deathwalker, the most suitable weapon for you should be a scythe. A huge scythe would be better. Let's go in and have a look. Tang Tianlin shrugged. They pushed open the door and entered. The interior of the weapons store was not very bright. Although there was an old smell, it was still tidy. When the two of them entered, they saw a young man about 17 or 18 years old tidying up the shelves of goods. What do you want to buy? The young man quickly greeted them with a smile. My name is Jilian, and I am an employee of this weapon shop. I am very happy to serve you. Let's just take a look. Tang Tianlin waved his hand casually. However, young Varley suddenly took out a special item. Give this to the owner of this weapon shop, and he will know why I am here. This. The young Jilian looked at the kid, who looked much younger than himself in surprise, but this kid looked quite old. If I tell you to go, then go. Don't be in a daze. Young Wally said indifferently, but his eyes narrowed. The shop assistant, Jilian, felt a sudden chill all over his body. He nodded and walked in a panic. After that, young Wally didn't look at the weapons in the shop anymore. Instead, he leaned against the shelves and waited. Seeing this, Tang Tianlin knew that young Wally wouldn't answer him no matter what he asked, so he just looked around casually. Time passed just like that, but the young shop assistant still hadn't returned. Only faintly, a rhythmic knocking sound came from the back of the weapon shop. It should be the sound of iron being struck. In the backyard of Locke's weapon shop, in front of a small house, the young Jilian was squatting on the doorsill with her hands resting on her cheeks as she watched the bustling scene in the house. The owner of Locke's weapon shop was a craftsman passed down from generation to generation. Jilian often heard the owner bragging about how great his ancestors were when he was drunk. Then, Locke's weapon shop's business hadn't been very good. The shop owner wasn't forging any divine weapon at the moment. It was just that an uncle from the neighboring street had placed an order to forge a kitchen knife. The shop owner, who had always been a procrastinator, didn't start working until today, when the customer came to urge him for the third time. However, the owner had a bad habit. He didn't like to be interrupted when he was working. Jilian had tried to interrupt him several times before, but he was scolded miserably every time. Perfect, the kitchen knife I made is perfect. Finally, after wiping his sweat, the owner of the weapon shop, Max, walked out with a black kitchen knife and handed it to Jilian. Come on, give it to that guy. Buy some food on the way back. Why aren't you going? Seeing this, Jilian took out the token and said that there were people outside. Max took the card and looked at it for a while before saying in a deep voice, Is he still waiting outside? Should be. Jilian nodded. Dad, do you know that person? He looks like the young master of a noble family. How come this shabby weapon shop is related to a noble family? Do you think he's a noble? Max sneered. Maybe he's a devil who's here to collect debts. All right, I'll take care of this person. Now, give this kitchen knife to him first. Otherwise, it'll affect my reputation. You still have a reputation? Jilian shook her head. After wrapping the kitchen knife, she walked out from the back door. Max's face was a little more serious at this time, and he quickly walked into the house. This is what you wanted. Soon after, Max came to the hall of the weapon shop and brought a box the size of a plate. The box was even sealed with a magic seal. Max frowned as he looked at the sharp-eyed young man in front of him. Look carefully. We've never opened this box privately, but so many years have passed. If there's any change in the things inside, it's not something we can control. I trust your ancestor. Young Wally chuckled and took the box directly. Your family has kept this for me for a long time. Don't worry, I won't come back in the future. The original contract will be written off. Seeing that the young man was about to leave, Uncle Max opened his mouth and gritted his teeth. Wait, what's in this box? What's in it? You'll die if you know. Do you want to know? Young Wally turned back and smiled. Max immediately broke out in cold sweat and took a deep breath. Let's go. I've fulfilled my ancestor's promise. Young Wally chuckled and walked out of the weapons shop directly. Tang Tianlin saw this and had to follow. However, as soon as they walked out of the door, young Wally suddenly pulled out the sword inlaid with gems and slashed out a sword light. Bang! Locke's weapons shop instantly collapsed. You'll die if you don't ask. Sheathing his sword, the young Wally left with a creepy smile. Tang Tianlin frowned. He turned around to look at the weapons shop that had collapsed and shook his head. In the end, he decided not to meddle in other people's business. Move! 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 In the noisy street, a group of heavily armored soldiers riding on mighty beasts were driving the pedestrians away. Among this group of astonishingly armed soldiers, a handsome man was looking at all of this with a smile on his face. Move! Move! In the end, this would push down the pedestrians. Many pedestrians fell to the ground at this time, and were even trampled. Finally, some people who couldn't stand such domineering bravery jumped out in an instant. Today, heroes from all over the world gathered in the royal city of Elnis to participate in the upcoming competition. However, other than the heroes, there were also many people who came to join in the fun. But soon, these brave people were pressed down on the ground by the fully armored soldiers. Some were even captured. The pushing and shoving continued to expand, and more people were hurt because of it. Oh! My knife! My knife! Ji Lian hurriedly bent down to look for it on the ground. But because there were too many people, he didn't even know when he dropped the kitchen knife. If he couldn't deliver the goods today, Locke's weapons shop would lose its reputation. Is this yours? Yes. Ji Lian was overjoyed. He saw a young man with black hair and black eyes in front of him, who was holding the kitchen knife that he accidentally dropped. Boss Luo. Thank you so much. If I couldn't find it, I don't know how my father would scold me when I go back. Ji Lian was so happy that his eyes almost popped out. This kitchen knife is pretty good. Luoqiu looked at the kitchen knife on the ground and smiled. The person who made it put a lot of effort into it. Just this knife? Ji Lian opened his mouth and shook his head. I don't know if he put a lot of effort into it or not. Anyway, not many people will buy it. The things my father made usually can't be sold. Father? Ji Lian said subconsciously. It's Uncle Max. He runs Locke's weapons shop. I was an orphan when I was young and he took me in. So, I call him father. Boss Luo looked at the white-clothed Araya beside him. The white-clothed Araya at this moment was the model of a quiet girl. She didn't cause any trouble along the way. He smiled and returned the kitchen knife in his hand, saying, Take it. Don't throw it away carelessly. It will be a pity. Ji Lian took it subconsciously. But seeing the young man with black hair and black eyes turn around and leave with the white-clothed girl, he blurted out, Please, please wait. Is there anything else? Ji Lian thought for a while and said, That? Don't go first. Although this kitchen knife is not worth much, it is related to the reputation of the shop. So, can I thank you? Didn't you say thank you already? That won't do. Ji Lian shook his head. It's easy to say thank you, but I'll feel bad. Boss Luo chuckled and thought it was interesting. He asked curiously, Then, how do you plan to thank me? This. Ji Lian was startled. He licked his lips and said subconsciously, Do you have any weapons, kitchen utensils or farming tools at home? I can help you maintain it for free once. It's really just once. Otherwise, I'll lose money. Brother, let's go. the white-cloved Araya said softly at this moment. Boss Luo smiled and said, "We don't live here, so we don't have any kitchen utensils. But we have some weapons. Is that okay?" "No problem." Jillian quickly patted his chest. "To be honest, I'm best at maintaining weapons and armor. Weapons that have been maintained by me are as good as new." "Then, what about your weapon?" He saw that Boss Luo was empty-handed and was only holding a little girl's hand. He looked thin and weak. He didn't look like an adventurer at all. Boss Luo took out the big sword, but he erased its glow. "It's here." You're a professional." Jillian was shocked. Only a real professional can summon weapons out of thin air. Our Locke's Arms shop has never received a real professional. At most, they're just ordinary adventurers. Please come to our shop." "I don't know where it is," Boss Luo said casually. Not far." Jillian said quickly, "I'll take you there now." "No, not now. I still have to give the kitchen knife to the customer. Finish what you have to do first." Boss Luo smiled faintly. "We have nothing to do now. We're just strolling around the king's city." "That's great." Jillian nodded and thought that this person was really good. Compared to the cold and scary noble young master who came to the weapon shop before, he was much better. "By the way, the soldiers that passed by just now, what did they do?" Luochu asked casually. "Does this happen often?" "Oh, that's the princess's direct guard." Jillian shrugged and said, "You'll get used to it after staying in the king's city for a few more days. The princess's guard has always been like this. It seems that a new chief has been born today, so he has to enter the palace to get a reward from the princess." "Chief?" "Yes." Jillian nodded. "It's the guy who rode the tallest beast in the team just now. He's the new chief of the battle arena set up by the princess. Her Highness the Princess values martial prowess, so she created the battle arena. As long as you can win 10 consecutive battles in the battle arena, you will be able to enter the palace and receive a reward. I heard that many of the soldiers in the direct guards were actually former champions of the battle arena. Are you interested in going to the battle arena to take a look? I'll take you there? If there's a chance." Boss Luo smiled. "Finish your work first." "That's right." Jillian nodded quickly. "Come, let's go this way is faster. I grew up in the king's city, so I'm most familiar with this place." "That's great," Boss Luo said casually. "I think I'm just missing a guide." In the heavily guarded king's palace, heavy armored guards could be seen everywhere. This was a scene that would normally only appear during wartime, causing the newly appointed chief of the dueling arena to be inwardly shocked. But the new chief wasn't too shocked. He was proud of his martial arts. 10 consecutive victories in the battle arena, this was a very proud record. Finally, he was brought to the front of the king's palace. It was said that the princess liked brave people the most. The chief of the battle arena would not only get a reward from the princess, but also have a chance to improve. The king's princess, unparalleled beauty. The new chief couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement at this moment. Finally, the gate of the palace opened, and a row of maids walked out to welcome him. They said sweetly, "New chief, go in, Her Highness has been waiting for you for a long time." "I know." The new chief smiled, stood up and walked in with his head held high. It was dark in front of him, and then it was bright again. The gate was closed at this moment. The new chief calmed himself down, only to see a beautiful and graceful girl standing in the room. His heart warmed up, and he instantly felt his whole body heat up. Seeing the girl walking towards him with a smile, he hurriedly said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Highness." "Princess?" The girl chuckled at this moment. "I'm not the princess, I'm the princess' personal maid." "Where is the princess?" "Princess." The new chief immediately looked up. The screen was pushed open, and an ugly woman with thick skin and a bloated body appeared in front of him at this moment. Ah! Chapter 1834. The guards were clearing the way, and the world seemed to be gray. King Amos had arrived at the princess' palace. The guards in front of the princess palace knelt down, and the maids also lowered their heads. Their bodies were slightly trembling. "Is the princess inside?" King Amos suddenly asked. "Yes, the princess is inside." One of the older maids quickly replied, "Head maid Laura is accompanying the princess." "There's another person," King Amos said indifferently. "I heard that someone was sent in just now." It's the new champion of the battle arena, Your Majesty." The older maid was about to continue, but King Yamos had already pushed the door open and entered. But the maids didn't dare to follow. Her Royal Highness didn't like to be disturbed when she was meeting the new champion, except for the head maid, Laura. Seeing that the king had already entered, they quickly closed the door again. At this time, King Amos was walking in the room expressionlessly. Soon, a beautiful girl appeared in front of the king. "Greetings, King Amos." The girl just slightly bowed. Her etiquette wasn't too grand. Or rather, it was more casual. "Laura?" King Amos nodded, and then said indifferently, "Where's Princess Carol?" "If Your Majesty wants to see the princess, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while." The girl, head maid Laura smiled and said, "Because Her Highness is eating. Your Majesty should know." At this time, a scream of horror suddenly came from inside. Then, a naked man crawled out in horror. His face was full of horror, and his body was very thin. His skin was dull and loose. It could only be vaguely recognized that he was the new champion of the battle arena. "Help! Help me! Help me!" The new champion was on the ground, struggling to crawl out. He tried to reach out to King Amos for help, but time didn't allow it. He died. "Laura! Laura! The champion this time is too bad." A low, ear-piercing voice that sounded like a monster's howl rang out. Then, Princess Carol, who was covered in abscesses and looked like a worm, lifted her skirt that had fallen back to her waist and walked out in dissatisfaction. This extremely ugly woman with pustules all over her body was without a doubt the Princess of Elnis. However, when she saw King Amos, Princess Carol wasn't too surprised. She just said indifferently, "Oh, you're here. Are you looking for me?" "Carol, you've brought people from the battle arena here again." King Amos looked at Princess Carol expressionlessly and said, "This is the third time this month. To be able to win 10 consecutive matches in the arena, you can be considered a talent." "Just a lowly human," Princess Carol sneered. "It's an honor for such a lowly race to serve me. If you can't hold on, it only means that you humans are too weak." King Amos frowned. At this moment, Princess Carol walked up to the new leader, who had already stopped breathing. She reached out and grabbed his arm. She directly tore it off and put it into her mouth. She then started chewing on it with her sharp teeth. She even said while chewing, "If you don't have anything else to do, go and manage your country. If you weren't my father. To be honest, the great bloodline in my body has mixed with your bloodline. This is the shame of my life." King Amos wasn't angry. Instead, he showed a sad and guilty expression. "I'm sorry. Don't worry. No matter what you want, I'll satisfy you. Don't make it sound so nice. You're just Mother's plaything. Without Mother's support, you would have died in the fight for the throne. Bastard." Princess Carol threw the badly mangled arm at King Amos. However, King Amos didn't dodge and let the dirty arm hit his face. Scram! Princess Carol impatiently waved her hand. "You bastard!" Princess Carol moved inside, and only then did the Yamos king silently wipe the blood off his face. At this time, the head maid came forward and said, "Her Highness wasn't satisfied with today's battle arena champion. Her Highness isn't in a good mood right now. King Amos, please go back. When Her Highness is in a good mood, she might want to see you." "I'll come back when I have time," King Amos indifferently said. The head maid, Laura, suddenly said, "King Yamos, the battle arena is just a small matter. The national tournament is a gathering of the talents of the entire continent. Her Highness the Princess is very much looking forward to the emergence of the champion of the tournament. I hope that the tournament will go smoothly without any mistake." King Amos indifferently looked at the beautiful head maid and indifferently said, "If you have time, spend more time with her." "Farewell, King Amos," the head maid indifferently replied. King Amos turned around and left. Very quickly, the maids walked in nervously. The head maid just calmly ordered, "Clean this place up. Later, send in the top 5 from the battle arena this time. Go now." "Yes." After saying that, the beautiful head maid slowly walked into Princess Carol's room. At this time, the maids didn't dare to breathe. This was because they knew that the head maid Laura was different from them. The head maid Laura came from the dragon race. She was an envoy sent by the dragon race to take care of the princess. "Bastard! Bastard! I'll kill him! Kill that bastard!" Princess Carol's roar suddenly echoed in the palace. The maids quickly covered their ears and curled up in fear. Being a servant in the imperial palace wasn't as bad as they imagined. Especially when they entered Princess Carol's palace, it was like entering hell. It was only after they entered the palace that they found out how cruel the kingdom's princess was. She was definitely not as beautiful and intelligent as the rumors said. "Bastard Yamos! We'll reach our weapon shop after turning around the corner," Jillian said with a look of eagerness to return home. Before this, he had already successfully delivered the kitchen knife to the customer. Because it was really delayed for a long time, he was inevitably scolded. However, Jillian was used to it and didn't care. Along the way, he told Boss Luo a lot of things about the royal city. Unknowingly, they arrived at Locke's weapon shop. However, the moment he saw the collapsed weapon shop, Jillian's expression changed. He rushed into the ruins of the weapon shop in horror and moved away the collapsed beams with a pale face. "Dad! Dad! How could this be? How could it collapse? Dad! Dad! Stop shouting. I'm not dead." At this moment, a figure slowly walked out. There was a lot of dust on his body and his clothes were torn. He looked quite miserable, but he didn't have any obvious injuries. At most, he was a little dispirited. This was a bearded man, the owner of Locke's weapon shop. Uncle Max. Jillian was so excited that she rushed to Max's side and hugged him tightly. "You scared me, Dad. How could the shop collapse? Although we don't have the money to repair it, I reinforced the main beam last month. It was bitten by termites." Uncle Max shook his head and said, "It's fine as long as you're fine. The shop can still be repaired. Let's not talk about this. Who are they?" Jillian had no choice but to tell them what happened on the way here. After that, he apologized to Luaccio and Araya in white. "I'm sorry, both of you. I wanted to come back to repair your weapons, but now, I'm really sorry." "It's okay." Boss Luo smiled casually. "After all, it was an accident." Jillian sighed and looked at Uncle Max reproachfully. "Then," he said, "I told him to use the money he earned last month to reinforce the beam, but Dad didn't listen to me and insisted on buying a new blower. Now, the shop has collapsed, and we can't do business anymore. What are we going to eat?" While Jillian was blaming Uncle Max was carefully examining a long sword. This was the great holy light sword that Boss Luo wanted Jillian to maintain. Jillian had been holding it all the way here, and she only handed it to Uncle Max when she mentioned the reason. "Dad, did you hear what I said?" At this moment, Uncle Max's eyes were filled with doubt and solemnity. In the end, he suddenly raised his head and walked to Boss Luo with the sword in his hand. He said in a low voice, This sword, is it really yours?" "Yes." Boss Luo nodded. "Is there a problem?" Uncle Max frowned and said, "But it wasn't supposed to look like this. Do you know?" Boss Luo said casually, "It wasn't supposed to look like this, but it looked a little flashy, so I covered it up a little. I didn't expect Mr. Max to see through it." "Of course I can see through it." Uncle Max stroked the body of the sword and said, "Of course I can see through it. I didn't expect that I, Max, would see it one day. I have a request. Can you allow me to personally maintain this sword?" Jillian had never seen Uncle Max like this before. She couldn't help but be shocked. If her father had this kind of attitude on a daily basis, their weapons shop wouldn't have to starve. Didn't this shop collapse? Boss Luo looked around and said, "It's just the shop that collapsed." Uncle Max quickly said, "The workshop in the yard is fine, and it won't affect my work. Trust me, only I can perfectly maintain it. The reason? I can't tell you the reason, but please trust me." "Then I'll have to trouble Mr. Max." Boss Luo looked at him and nodded. "Wait here." Uncle Max quickly said, "Jillian, clean up the place and take care of these 2 customers. Wait for me to come back." He hugged his sword and ran out in an instant. "Dad isn't like this usually." Jillian walked over and said with a troubled expression, "He'll only be like this when he sees something he's interested in. And he's a little stubborn." Boss Luo smiled and said, "I think the collapse is bad, but it's not serious. Let's see how much we can clean up." "But you're a customer," Boss Luo said casually. "If Mr. Max can maintain my weapon in the best way possible, then it'll be a reward. Besides, I don't have anything important to do now. Moreover, doing some manual labor may have some unexpected effects on my sister." Jillian was stunned and subconsciously looked at the beautiful girl who was standing there quietly. Letting such a delicate and beautiful girl do heavy work? How could he be so generous? The white-clothed Araya picked up her skirt and squatted down, using both hands to dig up a helmet buried in the rubble. Jillian was shocked and quickly said, "Little miss, I can do this heavy work, you don't need to do it, I'll do it, I'll do it." At this time, Boss Luo had already lifted up a log with one hand easily. This was the physical ability given to him by having 2 professions in the game chessboard. He wasn't a combat value of 5 now. Even if Mississippi Made's combat power testing tool came, the result would be the same. In the workshop in the backyard, Max was sitting beside the stove with a solemn expression, and the long sword was placed horizontally on his legs. Suddenly, Max cut his finger with a knife, and then wiped the blade of the long sword with his blood. Instantly, a ray of colorful flowing light appeared on the sword. Sure enough, Max slowly raised the long sword and muttered to himself, "I didn't expect that today. Not only can I fulfill the promise of my ancestors, but I can also meet one of the 3 godly weapons in the world, Aurora's Aster, which was made by my ancestors. I can feel a powerful force." At this moment, an indifferent voice appeared behind Uncle Max. This caused him to be startled, and he immediately tightened his grip on his treasured sword, which was glowing with rainbow light, and stabbed out. But when the sword was about to stab the target, it stopped. Uncle Max frowned and lowered his hand. "Why are you here?" In front of him was a man wearing a silver mask, revealing only one eye and wearing brown casual clothes. "I was passing by and suddenly thought of you, so I came to see you." The man wearing the silver mask said indifferently, "But I didn't expect that you came at the wrong time, but also at the right time. Max, what's that in your hand? I seem to feel a dangerous force from it." "No matter what it is." Uncle Max slowly put the sword back into the scabbard. "It has nothing to do with you. You'd better not have any ideas about it. Powerful force is hard to hide at any time." The masked man smiled faintly. "Even if I don't have any ideas about it, it doesn't mean that it won't appear in front of me again in the future. Let's drink, Max." The masked man threw out a flagon casually and said indifferently, "I brought it back from the dark canyon for some time, and I just found it in the cabinet today. No, I still have work to do." Uncle Max said seriously, "I'm not a person who will ruin things by drinking. Oh, this wine smells so good." "Ha!" The man wearing the silver mask couldn't help laughing.